This is the Troll Patrol. Live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live. It's a freaking Tuesday. And we've got the election graphics, we got the election music, so you know what that means. It is a big night for a debate. Two big ones tonight. The California Senate debate between Republican Steve Garvey and Democrat Adam Schiff for the open seat in California. Coming at you at the top of the hour. Directly after that, we're going to be watching the 8th Congressional District debate in Colorado. Cook ranks it a toss-up race. I believe we're going to be watching that. I believe the two debates are at the same time. 5 o'clock Pacific time for the California debate. 6 o'clock Mountain time for the Colorado Congressional debate. Both of those are 8 o'clock Eastern time. So we will watch the congressional debate on tape delay. Flash, Ponder Monkey, Anonymously, Warlord, good evening, friends. Warlord apparently trying to own me. PSW, good evening. Yeah, I heard he was a great baseball player. Probably a dumb fuck of a politician, though. We'll find out tonight. We'll find out shortly. First, here is your meme of the day. If we can control the weather, why would you be on the side that can't? I don't know how I got owned. Warlord, much like the other dumb fuck right-wingers, loves to declare that I got owned and ratioed and destroyed and all kinds of things that never happened. Multiple right-wingers on Twitter right now claiming they have owned me, and I don't know how. I don't know what... All I said was Milton went from a 5 to a 4, back to a 5, and expressed my dismay over it, and Warlord's like, well, that happens all the time. Now I'm getting ready to play you meteorologists that are going to act like this is the fucking end of the world. I didn't say anything about whether it happens or not. Jesus. I don't know shit about the weather. What the fuck do I know? I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not a climate scientist. I don't know shit about science. I don't know fucking numbers. How the fuck would I know about fucking replicating eyes or whatever the fuck it was? Eye replacement systems. All I said was that's wild. It went from a 5 to a 4 back to a 5 because the weatherman told us it was going to weaken before it hit Florida. Always gotta be putting these right-wingers in their place, telling them they're morons. Now, let me play you a weatherman who's gonna freak the fuck out about this storm and the fact that it was supposed to weaken before it hits the coast, but is apparently going to strengthen.
Update on Hurricane Milton just coming in, so we do want to start this half hour with Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Dennis, what's the new info at this point?
You know, not the greatest news.
See?
We are back to Category 5 hurricane winds of 165 miles an hour. We talked about this yesterday. As this storm was going through what we call an eye wall replacement, what happens is it weakens pretty significantly for about 18 hours, and then it strengthens again. It's a bigger storm at that point. Winds of 165. It is now moving east-northeast, so it's feeling the tug of that trough we've been talking about at 9 miles an hour, and the pressure 918 millibars. So warnings remain the same for the entire area. Hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings. The surge numbers are something that may need to be tweaked soon. And Shay and I and Allie, we've been kind of looking at the numbers.
I'm not high enough for this shit.
We're going to see if the surge numbers from the NHC are beginning to hint at a greater threat to the south. Now, if you've been following me on Facebook, you kind of know what we're talking about. We've been seeing this for several hours. This afternoon, there was a wobble of this storm to the southeast. How many times as Floridians have we seen that happen? I mean, it's absolutely impossible to forecast where that and when that is going to happen. But we know with our experience that quite often you get these wobbles, especially as they approach Florida. And 9 times out of 10, those wobbles are to the right. Well, today, that happened. It was small, it was subtle, but I will use the example that I always use. So imagine you're driving a car and you're holding that steering wheel, right? And you turn that steering wheel just a little bit to the right. Well, 100 yards down the road, it isn't going to change very much, your direction. But 200 miles down the road, it is. So that little subtle change, that little wobble has changed the track. The Hurricane Center has now bumped, nudged the track now down toward the south, closer to the
I'm happy about that, mainly because I was worried about rain coming up into North Carolina and Tennessee.
Nothing to do. There's no one at the Hurricane Center saying, well, let's make this cone a little bit bigger on this side and a little bit less on this side. All this cone is in terms of time, the average margin of error over the last 5 years. And it should be getting closer because we're now about 30, 34 hours out from landfall.
Tomorrow night, we're going to know a lot more about exactly where this motherfucker is going to hit.
I'll say this again. We as
it's just about ready to hit the coast.
Wobbles are going to happen, and there's not a model on Earth or a human on Earth, for that matter, who can predict where those specific wobbles are going to occur. But we do know, more often than not, they're a little bit to the right. So when we take a closer look,
several meteorologists have said that this is reaching the limits of what the Earth can even produce.
And now it is more south.
But it is mathematically impossible for this storm to be any stronger.
We're going to take a closer look at this, but I implore everyone watching this right now.
For this area, yes, for a storm in the Gulf.
That cone of uncertainty. How many times in the last couple of decades...
Our Lord is correct with that, and I think I said that.
To answer it, think of Charlie, think of Irma, think of Ian.
People want to fucking...
Helene. Because even Helene, at the end...
Bust my balls over here.
To the right. Remember how Tallahassee was in the sights? We were all the live shots in Tallahassee, all the trees, everything was going to be rebuilt. And 6, 7, 8 hours later, that track had shifted a little bit, 30 miles to the right. 30 miles is huge in terms of how it would impact the Bay Area. If you get a direct impact right into the Bay, it's
Lord, good evening. Hope you've had a fantastic birthday.
A little farther to the south, it's going to impact hundreds of thousands.
Getting ready to watch your
I don't want these folks.
Your state Senate debate here in about 17 minutes.
Dr. Ian, you just have to remember this
California Senate debate coming at you at the top of the hour. Clinically, good evening.
Normal error on these storms, the normal wobbles, are typically to the east and the south. So again, I literally just got this new track. I'm going to have a chance to go over and look at it. I'm not even sure necessarily if the models
T-minus, good evening.
For us, but there's one thing that's
welcome in, everyone. We are about 15 minutes away from the California Senate debate. Directly afterwards, we're going to watch the Colorado 8th Congressional District.
5, 6,
Cook Report ranks it as a toss-up congressional race.
Area and the heavy rain south of the eye.
Two big debates tonight.
The way this is going to set up, when this storm moves in, the northern half of that eye wall is going to have
news,
more rain than the southern half.
I have a police chase.
The southern half is going to be practically rain-free.
Plenty of content for tonight. We're going to move on. This was the update from, I believe this guy's out of Tampa. This is ABC out of Florida. ABC Action News was the latest. That was the 5 o'clock news report out of Tampa. Meanwhile, people are being urged to evacuate while they can. However, backups on the interstate and gas shortages are causing a problem for that.
Hard-hit area there, that Davis Island. And we have more coverage today out of Tampa for you.
Local 10's Samir Nafsi joins us live with another look at the evacuations underway and shelters in place for the storm.
Yeah, Cyrus, so we know 11 West Coast counties under a mandatory evacuation. Go ahead and take a look at some of these efforts. Floridians trying to get out of Hurricane Milton's path.
Where are all the people going? Why are you going towards it?
Nearly bumper-to-bumper traffic. This scene reflective.
What are all these dipshits doing?
This morning.
No, Fuzzy, the Arizona Senate debate is tomorrow night.
Guard members
We're
escorting
doing the California Senate debate tonight.
a congested I-4.
Even if we don't get the 10 to 12 feet of storm.
Politically out enjoying the weather today.
Came from Hurricane Helene just a couple weeks ago, and you do not want to contend with the storm surge for this powerful storm.
We have 2 people that can get on this bus here.
Welcome, Fuzzy.
Here on the campus of USF,
Welcome in.
campus
Good evening.
staff telling us they are prepared to transport at least 300 students to a Hillsborough shelter.
I'm a little nervous because it's my first time in a shelter for anything, specifically a hurricane shelter.
I've never been directly hit by a hurricane in my lifetime, so it's definitely quite the experience.
T-minus if you get called in, wouldn't it be in a couple of days?
Riding out the storm.
I'm an international student, so I have no idea what's going on, so I'm glad that they at least thought of their students.
Want some fruit?
Yeah.
2 bottles of water?
Students will remain at the shelter till at least Thursday.
It's hard not to be a little bit worried. The fact that we have to evacuate here is that's enough to get me a little bit worked up.
Meanwhile, at Burnett Middle School.
I've been through torrential rains, I've lived in a desert, I've lived in a jungle, but I've never gone through a Cat 4.
Terry McConnell, one of
Never gone through a Cat 4.
Shelter.
That's scary stuff. Get in cover. If you're not in a substantial building, find one.
All right,
Motherfucker is currently still a Cat 5.
At I-4, and you can just see how busy it is, as well as people driving on the shoulder turning I-4.
Supposedly, if the category of 6 existed, it would be a Cat 6.
Out of Hurricane Milton's pathway. Of course, the governor also warning people, as well as Tampa's mayor, to get their evacuation plans in order. We're really getting down to the final hour. We are live in Tampa. I'm Samir Nafsi.
President Biden is calling on Congress to come back into session and fund FEMA.
Grew up in Tampa, headed north, but now
Mike Johnson saying, nah, we don't need to do that until after the election.
To head down here to South Florida. Are you hearing that as well, that I-75 and Alligator Alley is also getting pretty packed?
Yeah, Christy, so earlier when we were talking to people, many actually saying they were heading to South Florida. In Orlando, as we know, Orlando is still very much possibly in the path of Hurricane Milton, but many saying they are going down to South Florida possibly, or just trying to get out of the state entirely. But we can tell you here in Hillsborough County, at least, a number of shelters are open and ready for residents here. We were at one you were able to see in that story just a few minutes ago. A lot of people taking advantage of that.
Looks busy on the roads, but they are moving along, especially with that shoulder being open. So, all right, we will be checking back with you later on this afternoon, Samir. Stay safe.
That was the midday update during the noon news. One of the things that you need to be on the lookout for if you are staying in Florida clinically is that debris from the last hurricane that happened 2 weeks ago may actually turn into projectiles. Floridians are rushing to clean up debris from Hurricane Helene so it doesn't become dangerous projectiles during Milton.
This one coming out of Milton, I'm a little bit nervous because I went through Katrina and that was mainly winds that destroyed everything. And everything's projectile out here right now because everybody's house is on the front yard, and so all this is going to be pretty much missiles coming through. If it's, the amount of wind that's going through with this hurricane coming in, I'm not staying for this one.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order to assist local governments and speed up cleanup efforts.
I think a lot of people, particularly on the west coast of Florida and the Florida Peninsula, saw major storm surge, major damage to a lot of businesses and residents that created a lot of debris. We also understand that this debris creates a hazard if we then get another storm in that same area. So the executive order orders all...
Clinically, if I don't hear from you after Wednesday, I'm going to be incredibly worried. You know that, right?
...to remain open and to allow 24-hour debris drop-off.
DeSantis, meanwhile, responding to criticism that he is refusing to answer the phone call of Vice President Kamala Harris. DeSantis yesterday.
Commensurate to the threat that it poses to the state, but particularly to that region.
A White House spokesperson said that you turned down calls from both Biden and Harris. Are you saying you're not aware of that? And if so, how are you not aware of that?
So Biden called me a couple days ago with Helene when I was on the helicopter. I didn't have any issues. They had helped us with what we've done. I'm not aware that he's tried to call since then. Certainly hasn't called my phone, so I don't know quite where they're getting that information. At the same time, we got the approvals that we need. If there's something else that we need, I'll hop on the phone very quickly, whether that's a FEMA administrator or the president, and we will press the case to be able to get approvals for what we need in Florida. But we have gotten approvals for everything that we've asked for.
Code in this area?
As far as Harris and you go.
I didn't know that she had called, so I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me.
Oh, now come on, Ron. You think we just fell out of a coconut tree?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
And their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political.
Given the severity of the storm, since I did want to ask you about politics right now in terms of should.
I don't really want to answer questions about this. Is not a time for politics. No, excuse me, Gary. You and your publication will twist anything that's done to try to make a political agenda. That's what you do. That's how you get your clicks. I understand that. I understand that's the...
What a hypocrite.
Well, but I don't want to talk about politics because... Well, but I have a feeling that however you do, you guys will find a way to frame it. That's just your shtick. I get it. It's fine. But I don't want to participate in it. We have had to respond to a Category 4 hurricane. We've had to prepare and now respond to something that may hit as a major hurricane, may be Category 4, may even be bigger than that. We hope that it does, but that should be the focus. And I think some of these questions are trying to create some type of political angle where there's just none there. What we've asked for has been approved. You're not seeing me out there carping or complaining about anything.
Carping?
What we need from the feds. We have been working constructively with all the local communities. We have marshaled an incredible amount of resources in the state of Florida to be able to get the job done. And that's just what we're going to continue to do. That's what we've always done when it comes to these types of situations.
If you can, give us a heads up in the Discord or something after the storm passes sometime on Thursday. I understand signal's going to be down, power going to be down. If you can, please let us know you're okay on Thursday. If we don't hear from you by like Sunday, that's when we're really going to start worrying. Unfortunately, I don't really have any other news that's going to fit in before we get to the debate. I was going to try to do all the Woodward and Trump bullshit. Ain't no way we're going to get all that in. We'll do crime news. We got 7 minutes. We want to just hang out. See if I can get a preview of the debate. Right, titty slap on your roof.
A titty slap! What the? Come on now.
Welcome in, Abattoir. See if I can get you a little preview of what to expect for tonight's California Senate debate. Remember, this is an open seat. This used to be Dianne Feinstein's seat. They were able to shut out Barbara Lee and Katie Porter, unfortunately, so we end up with Steve Garvey, a former baseball player. Wait a minute, was the Michigan Senate debate tonight as well? Oh, fuck. I forgot about that one. Oh shit! What? Did I think that was tomorrow? Am I confused? If for some reason I thought the Michigan Senate debate was tomorrow, am I off? It says Senate debate Tuesday night. I might have wrote down the wrong date. Maybe we gotta do 2 Senate debates tonight.
Stage right here in our studio as U.S. Senate candidates Alyssa Slotkin and Mike Rogers will look to win your vote. News 8 political reporter Rick Albin moderating tonight's debate. He's in our studio on the debate stage. Rick, what can we expect tonight?
Well, I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity for the first time for these two candidates to come together. They'll be right here at these podiums, and it's debate night in Michigan. And what that means is that for the first time since this campaign began, the two of them will meet in this televised debate. We'll have an opportunity to ask them about questions that we know concern the people who sent their questions to us at Wood TV. Also, the people who have been polled by Emerson College and The Hill for Wood TV 8. We're using some of those subjects and those questions. And so we really do have an opportunity for the first time to get a good idea.
I think it's just wrapping up. I think we missed it.
And I think it's probably going to be an interesting hour tonight beginning at 7 o'clock.
Michigan Eastern Time?
Like this so important as we get closer to the election.
Holiday, good evening.
There's just so much speculation on what's going on.
Fox, good evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we know that we've already got the absentee ballots that are going out. People are already voting. They're casting their votes right now. So as they watch this debate tonight, somebody could be sitting at home with their ballot, and they may get to the end of the debate and say,
they've got another one scheduled though, so we do not have to worry about.
For everybody who's interested in this race but has not yet made up their mind, this will be the first and the best opportunity. We'll be with our broadcast and other partners all across the state. We'll of course be streaming this live, and we'll be live nationwide on News Nation. So this is a
right. We'll do Michigan Senate debate after the California Senate debate, which is in 3 minutes.
To say yes, now I know what I'm going to do. But in any event, if people are watching tonight and they have a particular favorite candidate, that could be
tomorrow is the Arizona Senate debate.
And if they don't have that favorite candidate, they may develop one tonight. That would be our hope. So people do have a better choice and a better chance of making that choice as we head into this pivotal race that could be for the balance of power in the United States Senate.
Right. Okay, Rick, looking forward to tonight. Thank you.
Fox, we're going to be doing the California Senate debate before we do the Michigan Senate debate. We are 2 minutes away from the California Senate debate between Adam Schiff, Steve Garvey. We've also got the Colorado 8th Congressional District debate. Might watch all three here. We're going to go to ABC 7 out of California. Tomorrow night. Harry Lake, Ruben Gallego. I got my date wrong and thought Michigan was tomorrow night. I'm sorry, I subject you to whatever debate is debating. Tonight you're barely getting 3 big debates. Currently waiting for California to go live on commercial break right before. Oh, we got a bear story.
And we'll have to tell you who the winner is.
Colorado's 8th Congressional District.
Suspense. Oh my goodness, look at that thing.
Yeah.
Holy smoke.
Joey, good evening.
Thank you for joining us for Eyewitness News at 4. Up next, ABC 7 is hosting the U.S. Senate Candidate Forum at 5 p.m. It will be live streamed on all our streaming platforms. Mark Brown will be joined by a panel of journalists from across the state.
And then join us for Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock. Have a good night.
Mary Jane, good evening.
Honey, do you want me to schedule?
So, yeah, just a minute or two away from the start of the California Senate debate. Directly after, we're going to be watching the Michigan Senate debate. Alyssa Slotkin and Mike Rogers Following that, we're going to do Colorado's 8th congressional district, a pivotal race. It is ranked toss-up on Cook Political Report. The incumbent is a Democrat. It's hard saying, Ponder Monkey. Do you think going full red meat slobbering MAGA is a winning situation in California? Or is he setting himself up for a job with Fox News or a podcast? Does he know this is an unwinnable race? Adam Schiff is almost certainly going to be the senator from California when this is all said and done. So I don't know what the calculation is. We shall see. I do know that Mike Rogers in Michigan, pretty hardcore MAGA. Which may cost him. It's possible that these Trump-backed candidates are going to perform far worse than what a normal Republican would. We did our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Live Music Monday last week. We watched Mary J. Blige, Ozzy Osbourne, and who else did we watch? A Tribe Called Quest. Here we go.
To elect a new United States Senator.
Mark Brown.
To hear from the candidates themselves. I'm Mark Brown from ABC 7 Los Angeles, moderator of tonight's U.S.
Dub,
candidate.
welcome in.
Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff and Republican Steve Garvey are vying for the seat previously held by the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. Throughout the next hour, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question and 1 minute for a closing statement. Those times may be modified if needed. The League of Women Voters of California is a co-sponsor of tonight's event, and we are partnering with our sister stations, KGO in San Francisco and KFSN in Fresno, along with Univision Los Angeles. Our panelists for tonight's forum are Kristen Z from KGO, Warren Armstrong from KFSN, and Gabriela Tessier from Univision LA. I will have the option to continue or discontinue a line of discussion if the dialogue so warrants, and during this forum, having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of their office will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes such a personal attack, I will use my discretion to interrupt that candidate and allow for a response from the other candidate. This forum is scheduled for 1 hour. We will take a 1 minute break about halfway through. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
I'll begin the questioning now. We'll start with Mr. Garvey. Sure. Both of you are running to fill the seat held for decades by Senator Dianne Feinstein. And in 1994, Feinstein famously authored a bill on assault weapons. It was a ban that has long since expired. Now, since then, ownership of weapons like the AR-15, the gun that's most often used in these horrific mass shootings, has exploded, with millions.
This is the first time our first question hasn't been immigration.
If elected, would you take any action regarding gun legislation?
From an actual border state.
Well, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe it will never be overturned, nor should we attempt to overturn that. I do have sympathy for all of those who may have been victims of shootings, but I think that the most important thing is a stringent background check that goes much deeper than it is today in order to preserve the integrity of the Second Amendment and to be able to provide for people to defend themselves.
Mr. Schiff.
Well, first of all, Mark, thank you and ABC for hosting the debate tonight. Mr. Garvey, thank you. It's good to see you for being here as well. We're meeting at a precarious moment in California history when it's Padres won, Dodgers won. But also
this is like a World Series press conference.
Time because Californians are struggling to get by with food costs and rent costs and the cost of medicine. Our democracy is struggling. We have someone who wants to be a dictator on day one running for president. We have
there you go again.
The rights of millions of women have been taken away. So it's a precarious moment. We need leaders that can stand up to bullies. We need leaders who can stand up to the NRA. I would support an assault weapons ban. I would support extended and universal background checks. I would support a ban on extended ammunition clips and my own bill, which would strip away the NRA's immunity from liability. Mr. Garvey was asked just a couple of weeks ago if he would support any gun control measure, and his answer was an unequivocal no. That is not what Californians are looking for. Californians want a leader like Dianne Feinstein who will stand up to the NRA.
All right, Kristen Z, next question.
Congressman Schiff, last week temperatures in the Bay Area were 30 degrees above normal. San Francisco hit 97 degrees. That's the highest October temperature in some 30 years almost. These conditions have become more common across California, and they increase the threat of wildfires. What specific policies would you push to make our state more resilient to climate change and devastating wildfires and other disasters?
I've been meeting with people around the state who can't get insurance for their homes or their businesses because of the threat of fire. Communities that have been wiped out, lives lost. We had the tragic accidents recently involving California firefighters. The loss of life has been terrible. And there are a number of steps that we can take to address this crisis. First and foremost, we have to address climate change. We have to aggressively incentivize renewable energy, move us away from fossil fuels, which are causing the planet to heat up and setting states like California on fire. Here I disagree again with Mr. Garvey, who says he's got an oil-first policy of opening the spigots. That is not the answer to climate change. We also need to use technology to fight fires. As chair of the Intelligence Committee, I helped get funding to make sure we used overhead assets to identify incipient blazes so that we could put them out before they spread. I've also worked to allow nighttime helicopter airdrops of water, a policy that the Forest Service refused to use for years.
Mr. Garvey, climate change.
Well, let me say this first. Mr. Schiff has been a congressman for 24 years. And we've debated over 3.5 hours prior to this. And over these 24 years, the policy he's going to talk about tonight, the policies, he hasn't been able to do anything about it. Think about this, 24 years addressing existential problems in this country and never being able to cure the problems. And that's why the state is standing up now, its people, and saying it's time for change. But I think what is important is, in a federal position like the U.S. Senate, that we start to work to clear out the brush that really is the igniting point for many of these fires around the state of California. I was just up in Northern California at the Burn Fire and saw the devastation, what can happen and could happen. All these things he mentions have been done time and time again, but he never has an answer.
Gabriella, your question for Mr. Garvey.
Gentlemen, nice to see you again. California leads the nation when it comes to access to reproductive health care. We even have laws that protect non-California residents that come to our state to seek an abortion. Please explain your position on a woman's reproductive rights and abortion, and whether you would support a federal ban if it comes before the Senate.
I said this on day one almost a year ago, October 10th, that as the next elected U.S. Senator from California, I pledged to support the voice of Californians. And they have a bill, a constitutional bill, for abortion. And I pledge to support that. Now, I am a Catholic. I believe in life. I believe in life at conception. I believe God breathes a soul into these fetuses. So I steadfast in terms of my policies on abortion and also the pledge to support all the people of California.
Mr. Schiff?
Gabriella, reproductive freedom is a human right. It shouldn't be denied to Californians. It shouldn't be denied to women anywhere in the country. I'm going to fight, as I have in the past, for a national right to abortion law so that women make reproductive decisions. We've already seen so many cases where women have had to go from one state to another to seek emergency care, some who have died along the way. And Californians are expecting in their senator someone who will fight for reproductive freedom. Not someone, like Mr. Garvey, frankly, who said that he has supported the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Someone who would support states' bans on abortions. That's not the answer. If my colleague was listening to the voices of Californians, as he claims, he would hear their voices loud and clear. Californians want a national right to reproductive freedom, and they don't want the government in the business of making that decision for women.
Gabriella,
Mr. Schiff, excuse me, I think he mentioned me there.
Go ahead.
Believes in deconstructing the Constitution.
30 seconds.
He believes that Democracy is about packing the court. It's about doing away and downplaying the Second Amendment. Constantly, what people of California have told me as I've walked the state through this last 15 months is they believe in the Constitution. They don't want it desecrated on. They don't believe it should be torn down. They want somebody to stand up for the fundamental beliefs of this country.
Mr. Schiff, 10 seconds.
I don't know what deconstructing the Constitution means, but I do know this.
You worked very hard at doing this.
I'm for reproductive freedom, Mr. Garvey. You are not. And Californians deserve better than that. They're not looking for some MAGA mini-me in a baseball uniform. They want someone who's going to fight for their rights, as I will do.
Warren Armstrong, your next question for Mr. Schiff.
Mark, thank you very much, and good evening, gentlemen. Mr. Schiff, this is for you. 1 year ago this week, Hamas terrorists massacred nearly 1,200 people in Israel. Since then, the health ministry in Gaza says thousands of Palestinians have been killed. Lebanon is under attack, and Iran is firing missiles into Israel. What plan, if any, do you support to bring peace to a region that's been unsettled for nearly 100 years?
Warren, yesterday, as you know, was the anniversary of that terrorist attack by Hamas that took the lives of 1,200 innocent people, including Americans. Israelis were raped and murdered and abducted. Many still remain hostage. Hezbollah, the day after this war began, started lobbing projectiles indiscriminately into Israel. And Iran is using its proxies and now firing directly on Israel. The United States needs to continue to support its ally, Israel, in its right to defend itself. No nation state could go through that kind of attack and not defend itself. What's more, we cannot have a situation where that terrorist group, Hamas, continues to control Gaza or threaten the lives of Israelis, Americans, and others. So we need to support Israel. At the same time, we need to make sure that we're doing all we can to ultimately bring about a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live in security and peace. To me, that is the only lasting solution that will bring peace to the region. And tragically, Hamas, for a time, has killed that idea in Israel and elsewhere. But I think it's the answer.
Mr. Garvey.
I've said from the beginning that I support Israel yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I will stand by them for all their needs at any time. But I could never tell them they can't protect their sovereignty. I went to Israel. I've been there during this war. I went to the kibbutz that was beginning at 6:30 on October 7th, where the devastation and the true genocide began. I went to the music festival where 350 young men and women were killed and devastated there. I went to a hostage family's home. Guy is still a hostage. We need to get the hostages back. But let's face it, in two administrations, with the Obama and the Biden administration, this man voted for significant packages of billions of dollars to Iran. Why? To pander to Iran? Absolutely. Let's not be nice to Iran. What Iran did was build an arsenal and create 7 proxies that are now threatening the Middle East with one small country of 9 million people who are trying to survive. We need to step up and not pander. There'll never be a two-state solution because one of them will try to decimate the other. And by the way,
your time has expired, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, Israel.
Kristen Z, your next question for Mr. Garvey.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Garvey, Californians are struggling with our high cost of living. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, San Francisco's housing cost is a staggering 86.5% above the national average. Food, 17% higher. Transportation, 11% higher. What specific policies would you try to advance to alleviate the cost of living burden on working and middle-class families?
Absolutely. I think under Mr. Schiff's watch over these last 25 years, you've seen us come to a situation now where we're much worse off than we were 4 years ago. Let's get back to a free market capitalization, supply side. Let's start to get money flowing in this great state and country of ours. What suppressed the people right from the beginning, day one of the Biden administration, was to shut off energy. When you shut off energy, the ripple effect it has in this country went to the living room table.
We produce more oil, natural gas than any country in the history of the world.
All of these things need to be attacked and attacked in an expeditious, proper manner. And this man has seen this time and time again. He's never been able to solve the problem because he believes in throwing money at it and not actually coming up with an answer and a solution.
Mr. Schiff.
I think housing is a human right, and it's a terrible tragedy that we have so many of our fellow citizens that are living on the street, and so many more that can't afford a place to live anywhere near where they work. When I was a kid, my father was in the clothing business. He made $18,000 a year. My parents, on the strength of that single income, were able to afford our first home for $18,000 a year. That's not possible now. There's a lot that we have to do about this, and it starts with building a lot more housing and building it fast. I'm supporting a low-income housing tax credit that would incentivize the development of hundreds of thousands of new units in California. We also have to get local communities to approve housing much more quickly. It can take 4 years to build housing in many of our cities. We're never going to solve this problem if it takes 4 years or $1 million a door to build affordable housing. I would like to incentivize local governments to get to yes faster. And for those who are homeless and struggling from mental health or substance abuse problems, we need to get the treatment and wraparound services so they remain housed.
Kristen, you had a follow-up?
Yes, it's for Mr. Garvey. You mentioned wanting to get back to more of a free market. So in that regard, I wonder if you would support higher tariffs on imported goods, for example, from China, as presidential candidate Donald Trump.
That's the opposite of a free market.
I believe it should be a measured tariff situation, where if tariffs on a country should be administered if it is a company that threatens the success of an American.
Words mean things.
I think tariffs aren't the answer. I think allowing American companies and corporations to really survive and to prosper really means less taxation on them, so that we can get all these products and services in this country without the need for importing from other countries.
Mr. Schiff, want to address the tariff issue?
I don't support Donald Trump's across-the-board tariffs. Economists say this will lead to inflation. What's more, it'll be essentially a 10% tax on every consumer in California and around the country. That is not the answer. I do support targeted tariffs when China is dumping steel or dumping other products or dumping technology to try to drive American businesses out of business. Then you're darn right, we slap tariffs on China. But we should do it strategically and not indiscriminately across the board, which would simply result in higher taxes for Americans.
Gabriela, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Up until June, the San Diego sector was the area with the most undocumented migrant crossings in the country, into the country. Given the complexity of the situation for millions of families on both sides of the border, if it were up to you, what would be the first immediate action you would take to address the situation, even before Congress acts on anything?
We need to get control of the border. We need a strong border policy, which is going to require us, first and foremost, to have more personnel along the border. We need better technologies along the border to interdict both people and narcotics when narcotics are being smuggled across the border. But we also need a comprehensive immigration policy that treats those that are trying to immigrate or migrate as human beings, that's consistent with our values. We need a solution that provides relief for our dreamers and for the farm workers who put food on our table. It ought to be comprehensive if it's going to be effective. I met a gentleman when I was doing a roundtable in Calexico, walks across the port of entry every day, works on a farm in the United States, 100-degree heat, walks back through the port of entry to his family in Mexico. One of the hardest working people I've ever met. Someone like that should have a pathway to citizenship. Someone like that should be treated with respect and dignity. We can have both a strong border, but also treat people as human beings. That's the kind of policy I support.
Mr. Garvey.
Over the last 4 years, this man has voted for open border. That means that 15 million people, plus getaways, have come into this country. And we know when that happens. What we have to do is secure the border. We have to finish off the wall. We have to remain in Mexico. We have to reinforce our border patrol. We have to get back to building facilities at the border that will detain these illegal immigrants, then a judicial system that will try them. But let's face it, the times that I've been at the border, when I've gone up and down, it's an existential crisis in the country that's been created by Joe Biden. And with this man right here, maybe it's all about goats in the future. But I do believe, as somebody with common sense and compassion and consensus building, we've got to get back to letting those people that have started it the right way at countries and gone to their embassies and are waiting tens of thousands to come to this country to only see America letting in illegal immigrants as causing death and destruction in this country.
Thank you.
Mark, since my name was invoked, I'd like to respond.
Okay, you can
First of all, Mr. Garvey,
15 seconds.
I've never voted for open borders, but I'll tell you what, you voted for Donald Trump now 3 times. You say you're going to vote for him again. This is somebody who wants mass deportations. Someone who says they will enact mass deportations without the approval of Congress. So you're voting for mass deportations when you say you're for Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, that is not where Californians are. That is not where the American people are. And that is certainly not where I am.
15 seconds,
One
Mr.
of the
Garvey.
two of us is honest and straightforward.
I would agree with that.
And you're looking at him right here. What's happened is that you've hammered away at me at Donald Trump, and you don't know that. Don't really believe I'm a Donald Trump MAGA. But what is true is that
I know your policies
have you voted
read
for
like
George
Project, I know
Gascon?
your policies,
Have you voted for George Gascon?
I know
DA
your policies
of,
read
Los
like
Angeles,
Project 2025.
who has been
Mr.
easy on
Okay.
crime?
I know what I've read on your
We're moving a
website.
little
How about
further.
Proposition
The
36?
last
Are
question
you
was
voting
about
for Proposition
immigration.
36.
We are done. We're moving on.
I don't think Schiff is in L.A.
Warren Armstrong, your next question for Mr. Garvey.
Mr. Garvey, California's water shortage and storage are major issues across California, especially in the Central Valley, where 25% of the nation's food supply is grown. How do you specifically plan to address the water crisis, not only for California residents, but for the U.S. agriculture industry and food security?
That's a great question. I was just in Northern California, up the Shasta Basin, this second largest basin in the country, provides arguably the greatest agricultural area in the world with its water. The most important thing is we need support from our representatives. I don't think Mr. Schiff has done anything near what he needs to do, and this goes back to 24 years of failed policies. I think that what I saw last week were farmers, existential farmers who are the true roots of this country.
Existential?
Water and should get it. You know, water is the platinum. They say oil is the gold. The platinum for California is something that needs to be done. A great example is Kern County Water Bank, where private shares are used to provide water for them. Let's look at all these policies that need to be reinforced by elected officials and not just career politicians who have failed at the state of California.
Mr. Schiff.
Well, first of all, I'm enormously proud of California's agricultural industry. It feeds not only the state, it feeds the country, it feeds the entire world. Many of the farmers have been farmers for generations in California, and I'm proud of what they do. I'm also enormously proud of what the farm workers do, who toil for endless hours in the heat and often very difficult conditions to put food on our table. I want to make sure that that industry remains healthy. At the same time, I want to make sure that what has drawn so many people, including my own family, to California, our beautiful environment is preserved. And in order to strike that compromise, we're going to have to make use of this precious resource in a more efficient way, which means we're going to have to capture runoff in those wet years when millions and millions of gallons go out into the ocean and are wasted. It means that we're going to need to transport water from where it can be gathered to where it can be stored. It means we're going to have to deploy new technologies that can bring scarce water directly to the plant and be more efficient in how we irrigate. It means we're going to have to do a better job conserving. It means we're going to have to recycle more water and be more efficient in recycling as well. We're going to need to employ all of these things, and more than that, we're going to have to attack climate change, or we'll never get ahead of this.
Warren, you have a follow-up.
Yes, I have a follow-up, please, Mr. Schiff. Would you support the easing of environmental regulations in order to get those farmers more water and to also the urban areas?
I would not support eviscerating our environmental regulations, no. But what I would do, and what you brought up Senator Feinstein in your first question, what I would do is what Senator Feinstein did, which is sit down with the stakeholders, as I've been doing over the last year, make sure that I understand the issues and the trade-offs, and look for those opportunities where we can have a win both for our farms, our cities, and our environment.
Garvey looks like a used car lot owner.
To want to have it all and to do it all. That is to make
Down to Steve Garvey Chevrolet.
That we preserve our wildlife, but that we also continue to be the breadbasket of the entire world.
Mr. Garvey, 30 seconds. Should the regulations, environmental regulations, be eased?
Well, somebody who's built teams all my life and won, knows how to work together, and is a consensus builder. I think we need the environmentalists to work with the farmers. This vivid area needs to be preserved. Mr. Schiff has these great ideas, and if you look at his website, he's got 13 and 15 of them. The problem is he really doesn't have an answer of how to pay for that. And that's why all these issues lead up to $3 trillion in expense. But never does he have an answer in how to pay for these situations. Water, again, the platinum issue in California, and I'll fight for that every day.
Kristen, your question for Mr. Garvey. I'm sorry, for Mr. Schiff, excuse me.
Congressman Schiff, there is both excitement and trepidation over the rapid development of AI. One fear, though, is that AI may spread bias and misinformation. Another is its potential impact on the labor market. The White House Council of Economic Advisors has identified about 10% of the workforce as AI vulnerable. How would you address these concerns in the Senate without hurting innovation in California, especially in Silicon Valley?
Well, I probably, as the chair of the Intel Committee, had one of Congress's first hearings on AI, and in particular, AI's impacts on our national security. At that time, I was concerned about foreign or even domestic misuse of AI during campaigns to mislead voters, a concern that has only become greater. But my principal concern about AI is the one that you mentioned, that is, what is the effect on the American worker? What we've seen over the last 50 years, sadly, is life has gotten hard for working families. It's not that they're not working. Unemployment is very low, but because of globalism, because of automation, people are working harder than ever and still struggling to get by. AI threatens to accelerate that. Now, I want to keep this technology and these jobs in California because it's a force multiplier for our economy, but I want to make sure that it's well regulated so we protect workers and we protect the workplace. I want to make sure that workers can unionize and get good contracts and have negotiating power with their employers so that they can fight for good wages, health care, and good benefits. That's the approach I think we need to take to make sure the economy is working for everyone.
Mr. Garvey, AI.
Well, I think it is the future. I think that in many ways, in being on boards of institutions and medical institutions, that it is going to have tremendous effect and a positive effect. My only concern is how is it going to affect individuals? Can it be mind-altering? Can it affect their personal lives? I think in the future there'll be a balance between AI and labor and commerce. And it gets back to, and as Mr. Schiff mentioned, about the economy and about getting the economy back. Well, I like to call that Schifflation when he talks about the economy and trying to get that to coincide and come in line with new innovations like AI.
Gabriella, your question for Mr. Garvey.
We mentioned affordable housing before, but let's start with this. We face here in California a housing crisis with low inventory and high prices across the board. Critics often cite building regulations and zoning laws as barriers to increasing inventory. Others oppose rent control and more government intervention. So, do you believe we should let the housing market balance itself, or do we really need more regulation? Mr. Garvey first.
Well,
Mr. Garvey first, right?
Yes. That's me. Well,
we know.
I think this gets back to more of a local issue, releasing land leases on a local basis, working with builders, giving them incentives to build housing. Mr. Schiff in his website talks about housing, affordable housing is just build more housing, but it's much more than that. But if we do start to mention a federal issue, I think this is where government becomes over-involved and a situation can be worked out on that local level.
Mr. Schiff?
I'm not sure I followed that answer, but here's what I would say. I met with a young woman in the north of the state. She told me that she graduated from college about 10 years earlier. She was still paying down her student loans. Her rent kept going up and up and up, and rents are going up in rural areas as fast as they're going up anywhere else in the state. Between the two, she had barely enough to get by, and she was terrified. I think she speaks for millions of people. We need to build a lot more housing in California. And, my opponent may say, well, the government doesn't have much of a role in that, but we do. We can incentivize the development of housing. We can help break this logjam, and we're going to have to. The problem will not solve itself. We should also be making a greater federal direct investment in housing. And we also should incentivize local government agencies to make decisions quicker on housing. We're going to have to do all of this and more and treat this as the urgency that it is. It is my top priority to bring down the cost of housing in California.
Real quick, how about renters? What are you going to do to help renters? Let's start with Mr. Garvey.
Proposition 3, is that, are we addressing that?
What your policies would be to help people who rent.
Well,
30 seconds.
It's interesting that young men and women, young families, trying to buy maybe the single greatest asset they'll ever have, can't do that because of inflation, because of the economy. And I think once we get that economy roaring again, we get supply side influence, free market capitalization, put money in their pockets, they'll be able to buy homes and be able to rent at an affordable price. And I think that's where it starts from.
Okay, 30 seconds, Mr. Schiff, on rent, and then Gabrielle, you had a follow-up. Go ahead.
Look, if you're lucky enough to buy a home, you get to write off a lot of your mortgage as a result. If you're a renter, you get no help. I don't think that's right. I would like to see a renter's tax credit so that renters also get some help with their rent. I'd also like to see us expand Section 8 vouchers. We've made a lot of progress in moving homeless veterans into shelter. Because we put such a focus and priority on veterans, as we should. But everyone deserves a place to live, and I think dramatically expanding Section 8 vouchers, making them available for people who need them, making sure that landlords can't turn down people who want to use a voucher.
All right.
This is part of the answer.
Thank you. Gabrielle, really quickly?
Yeah, so it's simply put, more regulation? Do we need more housing regulation in the state of California, yes or no?
15 seconds each, Max.
We need less regulation. I think this is the problem. I think the more you regulate, the more you control. This man and his party wants to control this country, and they want to do this. This is almost a tyranny in which a government suppresses the people by controlling them.
More regulation, the answer is no. Far from it. What we need are tax incentives to build housing. What we need are local governments that treat this as the urgency that it is, that will make quick approvals or quick refusals. It's not going to be appropriate to build everything everywhere. But a quick answer is much better than a long, lingering maybe or a no.
Thank you.
Local government needs to act fast.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break from this U.S. Senate Candidate Forum. We'll be right back with another half hour.
Welcome in to everyone who might be joining us late. This is the U.S. Senate debate in California. I am JustinFREAKIN. We find out what that news be doing every Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The most absurd news, politics, and current events on the internet. Be sure to give me a follow or a subscribe wherever the fuck you're watching right now. Especially if you like watching like congressional hearings while somebody makes dick and fart jokes. That's kind of what we do here. Coming up directly after this, we're going to watch the Michigan Senate debate between Mike Rogers, the Republican, and Elissa Slotkin, the Democrat. Have you guys noticed how the people on YouTube that have criticisms of Adam Schiff aren't really having any criticisms? They call him bug eyes. They say he's lying. They don't say what he's lying about. They don't actually have any substance to what they say. I do appreciate Lynn, who is actually trying to have a conversation. Other than that, it's weird that the right-wingers show up and they're like, Schiff has bug eyes. Schiff is a liar. You have no substance, and that's the reason why we call you morons.
Welcome back to the U.S. Senate Candidate Forum, hosted by ABC7 and the League of Women Voters of California. We'll continue our questions now. I'm going to ask for Mr. Schiff.
I'm not high enough for this. Light one up, tip one back.
Mr. Schiff, you begin.
I support Vice President Kamala Harris. I think she has a strong plan to make the economy work for everyone. I think she's a good and decent human being. I think she will stand up to bullies around the world like Vladimir Putin. She has earned my vote. On the other hand, Donald Trump, I think, was a disastrous president. I think he has threatened our democracy. He says he wants to be a dictator on day one. He wants to use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies. He demonizes groups of people. Right now, it's the Haitians, and who will it be tomorrow? Americans want someone who is good and decent and ethical, who knows right from wrong, who's capable of telling the truth as the President of the United States. And the choice, to me, is very clear, and it's Kamala Harris.
Mr. Garvey.
They've been trying to paint me for a year now into one corner or the other. And I've said, I'm running a Steve Garvey campaign. I make my decisions based on what I think is best for the people. I did vote for Donald Trump 3 times. I believe he's the best man for the job. We were much safer. We had a better economy. We had more to look forward to. People could dream. But I can't imagine, Mr. Schiff, how you could get up every morning and have one mission, and that's to go after Donald Trump. You've been made a proxy by the higher-ups in your party.
You what?
It's going after him concerning impeachment, all these things. And if you think about it for a minute, how can you think about one man every day and focus on that when you've got millions of people in California to take care of?
Mr.
I think it's unconscionable. And like I said before, he lied to 300 million people when he was going through that whole process of trying to get Donald Trump impeached.
Mr.
What?
30 seconds.
Mr. Garvey likes that particular attack because that's what Trump likes to say.
I assume he means primary as well.
MAGA viewers out there, hey, I'm one of you. That's not what Californians are looking for, Mr. Garvey. Mr. Garvey, I stood up to a corrupt president, and yes, I investigated him, I impeached him, I led the trial in the Senate, and when he incited a violent attack on the Capitol, and I was there that day, Mr. Garvey, I was there on January 6th as those insurrectionists were breaking down the doors and windows. The fact that you think that's perfectly okay, that you still want to support the guy who incited that violent attack, that tells me that you would never take your oath of office seriously,
your time is
as I
expired.
do.
I'll give you 30 seconds, Mr. Garvey, and then we're going to move on. 30 seconds, sir.
He's stunned.
I've left him speechless.
No?
Yes!
Because I'm trying to think about all the things that you lost. You know, when you step up and you talk like you talk right now, it tells those hardworking people in California that you don't care about them. You care about something else. And I think that you were banned from the Intelligence Committee. You were censored, only one of 3 congressmen to be censored in the history of the Congress. And if you're elected...
Yeah, Republicans retaliated against him.
It's
the most toxic Senate in the history of the Senate.
You know what it
And
tells them,
that.
Mr. Garvey? It tells them that I will stand up and defend our democracy and that you won't.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on from support.
Is that Warren Beatty?
Now we're going to talk about fentanyl. Warren, you have a question for Mr. Garvey.
122,000
And then Bart Brown said Warren.
last year were attributed to fentanyl. As of yesterday, there have been 62 deaths just in Fresno County. Legislation recently passed requires the president to sanction cartel members who are engaged in fentanyl trafficking and those who funnel precursor chemicals from China. But fentanyl is already here on our streets and it's killing people. How do you plan to address the fentanyl crisis if you're elected?
Well, first of all, the majority of the fentanyl comes from China. It's precursor there. It's brought to Mexico. It's put together in Mexico, and then it's driven across the border, where it's driven to cartels for distribution that are killing Americans. Let's get back to securing the border, number one.
No, it doesn't.
Let's deal with Mexico honestly and straightforward, and let's deal with China on this. Let's stop being nice with China and nice with Mexico. Americans are being killed because the borders are open. Let's face it. We've got to get back to securing the border. Fentanyl, single worst drug ever to come across the borders from anywhere, that are killing our people.
Mr. Schiff.
Prior to my service in the legislature, I was a prosecutor here in Los Angeles for 6 years. I prosecuted people smuggling drugs into this country from Mexico. I have experience being on the front lines of the fight against those drug smugglers who are ruining countless American lives. Fentanyl has been a...
California, one of the biggest drug smugglers was the head of the police union.
When they're in college,
he was busted for bringing fentanyl across the border in large amounts.
It's terrifying, and for all too many, something did happen tragically. We need to strengthen our interdiction efforts at the border, that's true, but let's be honest about what's happening at the border. Most fentanyl that's smuggled in this country comes through ports of entry, carried by Americans. And we need to go after them, and we need to go after the international cartels that are trafficking in this death. And yes, we need to go after China or anyone who is manufacturing these precursors so that we can protect American lives.
All right, Kristen Z., your question for Mr. Schiff.
Congressman Schiff, on Forbes' 2024 World Billionaires list, California has 86 billionaires, the most of any state. While the average income of the top 1% has risen significantly, middle-income Californians have seen their earnings and their buying power decline. What's your view on the tax burden for different income groups, and how would you address this growing wealth gap in our state?
Some years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Warren Buffett, one of not California's billionaires, but one of the wealthiest people in the world. We discussed how the tax rate for his secretary was half of his own effective tax rate. He didn't think that was right, and he is correct about that. That's wrong. It's immoral, and it's terrible economics. If you look at it, a handful of the richest families in America own almost half of the nation's wealth. And the reason it has gotten this bad is we have a tax code that is terribly unfair to working people and middle-income families. I would change that. That Trump tax cut that Mr. Garvey supports, that just made the rich richer and it made corporations wealthier, but it did nothing for most families. In fact, Californians, middle-class Californians, got a tax increase when the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction, was capped in a punitive act by the former president, affecting blue states like California. I would raise that cap. I would support child tax credits that lift kids out of poverty, and I would make the very wealthy and corporations pay their fair share.
Mr. Garvey, taxation?
Taxation. 4 years ago, taxation was the sweet spot for this country. Vibrant economy, men and women going to work every day and believing that they could fulfill their dreams. And it's not that way now. Because an administration and because this man hasn't done anything over the last 24 years on any of these things that have given us any consistency in the life, what this state has become is a welfare and a wealthy state. But let's let those people who, and getting back to what everybody talks about now are small businesses, let's get back to taxation that allows small businesses to be vivid again and contribute. I think I'm good with the...
I would love that as a small business owner. Roll back the Trump tax cuts.
Were 4 years ago. And let's get back to people who are successful, be able to make that much money, but they will pay their fair tax. Under my time in the U.S. Senate, 6 years, I'll make sure that happens.
Gabriela, your question for Mr. Garvey.
Latino voters. According to the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, NALEO, the Educational Fund says 29% of registered voters in California are Latino. That's nearly 1 in 3. So why should Latinos vote for either of you? What part of your political platform do you think resonates the most with our Latino community?
Mr. Garvey.
Well, I came here over 55 years ago, put on a Dodger uniform, and I think most people know, played 20 years. And over that time, the emergence of Fernando Valenzuela and
Latinos like baseball
increased attendance at Dodger Stadium by 40%. And in the last debate we had, the question was, Latino voters don't believe you really care about them. And I think Mr. Schiff said, well, we haven't. And I looked in the camera like I will now and say, when I get back to the U.S. Senate, the Latino community will be my priority, and I will fight for them. And if we get that supply-side economics in line and get this vibrant economy, the money will go into their pockets, and then know who really cares about them.
Mr. Schiff.
Gabrielle, in my opportunities to meet with Latino business leaders around the state, what they've told me is that the struggles they face are the same in many respects as every other community. When housing prices go up, they're disproportionately impacted in the struggle to find housing. When the cost of food and gas, groceries go up, and medicine, they're often left wanting. But more than that, there are strong regional needs that I'm also trying to meet. Latinos are most disproportionately impacted by the Tijuana River ecological disaster that's affecting their health. Similarly, in the Salton Sea area, Latino communities deeply adversely impacted by that environmental justice. In the Central Valley, hospitals like the Madera Hospital are shutting down because we're not adequately funding rural health care. Latinos are losing access to health care, life-saving health care. In the north of the state, lack of broadband access means a lot of Latino families get left behind when it comes to education. I'm going to fight for the Latino community. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of La Opinion in this race. This is going to be a top priority for me.
Warren, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Let's talk healthcare. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention indicates that more than 8% of Americans, 27 million people, lacked health insurance at the beginning of 2024. That number is expected to increase as protections linked to the pandemic end. What is your plan to help those without health insurance, and how will you protect those with pre-existing conditions? Mr. Schiff.
My wife and I had the experience that all too many families have of our daughter coming into a room in the middle of the night bleeding, and we had to rush her to
This is an easy answer. It's a layup.
Fine. She got treatment.
3 words.
Too many
Medicare for all.
California and around the country don't have access to that kind of good, immediate, quality health care. I think we should make Medicare available for all who want to participate in it. Folks who don't want to participate shouldn't have to, but those who want to should have that opportunity. What's more, we should continue to negotiate down the price of medicine through Medicare negotiations. I'm going to fight to strengthen Medicare and Social Security. Mr. Garvey says we should, quote, cut these entitlements. That means cutting Medicare for seniors, cutting Social Security for seniors, these incredibly important health care and anti-poverty programs. That's not where Californians are. That's not where I am. My father passed away at 96 this year. He relied on Medicare. He relied on Social Security. He relied on VA health care. I want to make sure that's strong for future generations.
Mr. Garvey.
Let's make sure that we have a vivid and strong Medi-Cal and Medicaid and an expanded Medicare. I think that's where all this starts. Let's not do away with competition between healthcare companies. I'm on several boards.
There's no competition. Oh, you're on several boards. You take money from them.
Competitive nature of
You make money off healthcare. Fuck you.
regulations have constrained people competing against each other, and we become stagnant. Let's get back to free market capitalization, where these insurance companies, or I'm sorry, healthcare companies can compete for lower prices so it'll benefit all the people.
Can healthcare companies not compete now?
They've been restrained by regulations, and I think that's one of the problems with where we are in America right now is we need to deregulate. Once this administration took over the first day, you saw a significant amount of regulation at all the key areas that affect our lives.
A quick question for both of you. There's some...
respond to the last one, because I was puzzled to hear Mr. Garvey say he was supporting expanding Medicare. Because early in the campaign, Mr. Garvey, you said you wanted to, quote, cut these entitlements. What entitlements were you saying we should cut, if not Medicare and Social Security?
Where are you getting your information?
From you, Mr. Garvey.
No, not from me. You know, when this campaign started, that first day I announced, you came out with a snarky remark that, oh, he was born on third base, meaning that I came from a wealthy family. Well, let me tell you, let me finish. This is going to be about how you disparage my mother. A hard
I'll fuck your mom.
Who got up every day and took 2 buses to go to work, came home and took care of her son and her husband, who she helped get out the door, being a Greyhound bus driver and an invalid mother. So this is what you do. You
I have
lie
nothing but the kind
constantly.
of things to say about your mother.
Let's just face it. This is who you are, and this is what you do.
We're talking about your wanting to cut entitlements.
All right. I think we're getting a little far afield here. Let's continue. I have a question for both of you. Both presidential candidates have, at one time or another, come out.
All right, you don't know what you're talking about. Oxy 30s were never $10. You're a dumb fuck.
To stymie civil rights legislation, voting rights legislation has been used to stall or stop appointments to either the cabinet or the federal courts. I want to know both of your position on whether or not you would vote to abolish the filibuster, and I will begin with Mr. Garvey.
Filibuster is a vibrant way for the minority voice to have an opinion. And in this country now, this administration and the progressives are trying to deconstruct the Constitution. They're trying to pack the Supreme Court. They're trying to do away with the filibuster, do away with the Electoral College. All these things are part of this.
All those things are more democracy
in the world, and that's the Constitution. On his watch, all he's talked about is doing away with all of these things, packing the court.
All of that is constitutional.
Especially packing the court, right? To take away the real judicial voice of America. And I think that this is unconscionable at a time when we are around the world, never been threatened more, never been in more danger, that you should constantly talk about the Constitution, and now you can deconstruct it.
You've never been in more danger?
Abolishing the filibuster.
I'm for abolishing the filibuster because, Mark, if we're ever going to restore voting rights, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we're going to want to take meaningful action on gun safety legislation, with the universal background checks, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want comprehensive immigration reform, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want to restore reproductive freedom to millions of women in California, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. And as to packing the court, Mr. Garvey, in case you weren't paying attention, it's already been packed. It was packed with reactionary justices who took away the reproductive freedom for millions of people. That court ought to be term limited. There should be enforceable sanctions, ethics sanctions, an enforceable ethics code for that court, like any other federal employee. And yes, that court should be rebalanced, because I don't want my kids growing up under this kind of a reactionary and partisan Supreme Court.
To the people listening, both in this state and around the country, what he's talking about is eliminating free speech. This administration is constantly talking about taking away the free speech of the people, doing away with the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is under attack by Mr. Schiff and his party. That's why you need a voice like mine in the U.S. Senate starting next January.
Mr. Schiff, I'll give you 30 seconds and then we'll move on.
I appreciate that. Look, I don't know where he's getting half this stuff. He wants to abolish the First Amendment. He wants to stop people's right of First Amendment speech. That's gibberish. Here's what I do want. I want a Supreme Court that we can once again respect, that is enlarging our rights, not doing away with them. I don't want voter restrictions put in place so that eligible voters can't vote. Another generation of Jim Crow laws. I don't want that. I want meaningful gun safety legislation. I want strong action against climate change. Sure. This is, I believe, what Californians also want.
All right. Thank you for your time. Kristen, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Thank you, Mark. Congressman Schiff, in many national conversations, San Francisco is portrayed as crime-ridden and unsafe. But FBI crime data shows it's not actually among the top 100 most violent cities in the U.S. Similarly, California is sometimes characterized as a failing state, despite being the world's 5th largest economy and a center for innovation and diversity. So as a candidate,
not even in the top 10 for violent crime,
and its people, all its people, what is your view of California? And based on that view, how would you build a better California?
Well, I realize that Californians are struggling. I understand that many of you are working harder than ever and having a difficult time getting by. And in the big cities, San Francisco is not alone. I think all big cities in California and many around the country are facing the same post-pandemic struggles to come back. I want to work with community leaders and stakeholders in every part of this Golden State. There's going to be a headline one day, San Francisco is back. There'll be another, Oakland is back. All of our cities are back. And it means that we're going to have to encourage and incentivize people to come back to these big, beautiful cities. California is this incredible hub of innovation. I want to keep the entrepreneurial economy here in California. It's given us all tremendous economic dividends. We want to keep that strong. Yes, it needs to be regulated to protect our society, to protect our workplace, but I want these jobs in California. I don't want them exported overseas. And again, I want to follow Dianne Feinstein's model. She sat down with people. She got to yes. You got to be able to work with people on both sides of the aisle and deliver. That's what I've done, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff. Mr. Garvey.
Mr. Schiff, you're no Dianne Feinstein. I remember when this state was the heartbeat of America, and now it's just a murmur. It's because of the suppression.
The rest of the country lives off California, New York, Texas, and
like
Illinois.
Who now have forced good people who have come to this state, came here to dream, knowing that every day, 85% of Californians wake up each morning and realize they're only going to break even or going to lose money. And it's shrinkflation, it's suppression of energy and the voice of the people. And I think that this country is only going to start to grow when we start to build consensus, getting back to what I believe in, and that's common sense, compassion, consensus, and not voting 98% down party lines, being able to reach across the aisle and stick out your hand. And I'll do this as the next elected.
I hate it when they say that shit, because Congress only tackles,
and stick out my hand
what,
and say,
10, 15 bills nowadays?
In my state, in this country.
Mark,
And I think a lot of them will.
I'm going to give you each 15 more seconds. Mr. Schiff.
I'd like to respond to what he said. And Mr. Garvey, I knew Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein was a friend of mine, and you're right. I would never pretend to be the equal of Dianne Feinstein. She was a giant. She was a giant. But I'll tell you something about Dianne Feinstein.
She was a tiny, tiny woman.
Like Dianne Feinstein, I've worked hard
very tiny
to get mass transit built, to pass California's Patient Bill of Rights, which I wrote. I worked to get the early earthquake warning system set up.
I
brought millions back to California for housing.
We've got to get to closing statements.
If I could just say, well, Mr. Garvey was signing baseballs for the last 37 years. I was seeing presidents of both parties and governors of both parties sign my bills into law.
And for 24 years, you've only been known for one thing, and that's impeaching somebody else. That's unconscionable.
All right.
He just
going to get to our closing
He
statement.
just named off a whole bunch of shit he's done.
1 minute to present their closing statements on why they should be elected by Californians to the United States Senate. Mr. Garvey, you are first.
Well, it's been 55 years since you and I first met, coming to Dodger Stadium September 1st of 1969, putting on a Dodger uniform, playing for 20 years in San Diego and L.A., growing businesses, family, being involved in.
That's a selling point. I played for the Dodgers.
California is all about. I listened to a song, "Someone Like You" by Van Morrison, and it reminded me of the day I decided to run. That someone like you is the people of California who've been suppressed and regulated, who need a new, fresh, young voice. Somebody will get up every day and swing for the fences for you, and that you know in my heart and in my prayers. I will be a 6-year senator that'll make a difference in your life, and your family, your future, and your children.
It's home run derby for the Senate seat.
Greatest journey of my life. I need your vote. Go to stevegarvey.com.
Mr. Schiff, 1 minute.
Thank you again for hosting the debate tonight. I've been very proud to represent California in the U.S. Congress. I'm proud of my record of delivering for the people of California. I'm proud of building light rail. I'm proud of.
Well, for those of you who don't know, there should have been a Democrat sitting next to Adam Schiff tonight, but Adam Schiff's campaign
to build housing
elevated Garvey
done again in California
the way Clinton did with Trump.
That helps us attack wildfires.
The primary in
And
2016.
expand health care to millions of people. Californians deserve a senator who has a track record of delivering, of getting things done for the people of this state. But California also has a right to expect that their senator.
This should have been Adam Schiff versus Katie Porter,
for our democracy,
and it would have been a lot better.
Will take on even a corrupt president, which was my obligation, my constitutional obligation.
But Schiff probably wouldn't have won in that race.
But I've been enormously proud to represent many of you in the House of Representatives. I'd be very proud to represent every part of this big, beautiful state in the U.S. Senate, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff and Mr. Garvey. Thank both of you for this great forum. We'd like to thank our co-sponsor, the League of Women.
Another debate in the books.
Partner, Univision LA.
This was the California Senate debate.
San Francisco and KFSN in Fresno.
Welcome in, everybody who may not normally watch the Troll Patrol. I'm JustinFREAKIN. We find out what that news be doing Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I am also your home for debates here in this election season. Next, we're doing the Michigan Senate debate between Alyssa Slotkin and Mike Rogers. It is another open seat. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with the Michigan Senate debate. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
All we're establishing is this guy's wicked sick aesthetic.
Not high enough for this shit.
I guess I gotta thank Matt Ball for introducing me to JustinFREAKIN.
Hey there, y'all. We're about to get stupid, locked into what that news beat doing. Fu Manchu and a slick bandana, colder than ice, smoother than Santana. Audio, video, chat and calls. Right-wing nut jobs haunt the halls. What you wanna watch? Hey, what you think? And there's only one choice. It's JustinFREAKIN.
The guy's, he's a formidable voice in the culture.
Light one up and tip one back. It's a right to be high. Let's grab a snack. It's fucking news, clip, panic, attack, and play your cards right and get a titty slap. Jump in discords, have some fun. The man will talk to everyone. Get high and try to debate. When shit pops off, chat thinks it's great. What do you think you're doing? Join the troll patrol. Wherever discourse is brewing, he gives it that southern drawl.
So let's go ahead and bring in Justin. Hey Justin, how's it going, brother?
First of all, I want to say you're poser South. I'm in Alabama. I'm the real South.
Okay, all right. So why don't you tell us what it takes to be a man?
Well, I don't know. I'm in Alabama and I'll fuck a man in a dress. Why won't you fuck a man in a dress? Are you that insecure that you won't fuck a man in a dress?
That's fantastic. So you're okay with that, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Good.
Right-wingers are morons.
Light one it and tip one back. One more clip before we hit the set. Set an alert when that shit goes live. Social fucking support and hit subscribe. Light one up and take a hit. He does no harm, but he takes no shit. He's the last one standing when the ship is sinking. Let's take another rip for JustinFREAKIN.
Light one up, tip one back. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
Not high enough for this shit.
Welcome back in. Yes, I am not high enough for this shit. But let's go ahead and get it started with the Michigan Senate debate between Democrat Alyssa Slotkin and Republican Mike Rogers. This actually took place earlier this evening. We're going to be watching it on tape delay, I guess you could say.
Debate night in Michigan. Former Congressman Mike Rogers says he will return to Washington and get America back on track.
The most expensive vehicle to operate in Michigan in 2024 is your grocery cart, thanks to the Democrats in Washington, D.C.
Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin promises to expand Michigan's middle class.
The prices are too high on lots of things. Groceries, gas.
What we try and do is attack specific costs that are still a huge part of people's budget.
Tonight, for the first time, they take the stage together. At issue, inflation.
We've got one more debate coming after this. Is going to be the Colorado 8th Congressional District debate.
Your host for our
directly after this one.
The stakes could not be higher. Good evening from the News Nation studios in Washington. I'm your host, Leland Vittert. Control of the United States Senate and the White House run through Michigan.
Leland Vittert?
Will reshape the.
I hate you, just based on your name alone.
News 8 anchor and veteran political analyst Rick Alvin.
Leland Vittert?
The debate is being broadcast from Escanaba to Detroit, Benton Harbor to Mackinac Island. We're streaming online and across the country on News Nation. Before we get to the questions, let's review the debate rules. Mr. Rogers and Ms. Slotkin, you will each have 60
Mr. Rogers.
Statement. You will also have 60 seconds to answer a question. For your rebuttals, you will each have 30 seconds. Rick will alert the candidates when time is up. Each candidate will also have 60 seconds for a closing statement. And now live from Wood TV 8 in Grand Rapids, it's debate night in Michigan.
Thanks, Leland, and welcome to our candidates, and thank you for being here, and thanks to everybody for viewing. We encourage all the folks watching tonight to let us know your thoughts on X by using the hashtag #MISenateDebate. It's also where you can find the source material used in developing tonight's questions. As per our agreements with the candidates, each will get a 60-second opening statement. A coin flip determined that Congresswoman Slotkin, you will go first. Thank you for being here. You have 60 seconds.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thanks to Wood TV for hosting us. I'm Melissa Slotkin. I'm a third-generation Michigander and the proud congresswoman from Michigan's 7th District. My life in national security actually began on 9/11. Happened to be in New York City on my second day of school when 9/11 happened. Got recruited by the CIA, did 3 tours in Iraq alongside our military, and came back and worked for 2 presidents, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, proudly, because I believe that service should be nonpartisan. I'm running for the U.S. Senate because I believe we must enhance and strengthen the middle class. Michigan invented the middle class. That means jobs with dignity, and it means bringing down the costs that are eating a hole in people's pocketbooks. I'm really glad we're having this debate tonight. There are some real differences between me and my opponent, but the good news is we both have records. I have 5 years in the U.S. Congress. Mr. Rogers had 20 years as an elected politician. So we'll be able to see very clearly not just what we say we're going to do, but what we've actually done. And I think it's important because we have big differences on the middle class, on costs, and on a whole bunch of other issues. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Congressman Rogers, thank you for being here, and it's your turn for 60 seconds of an opening statement, sir.
You know, thanks to Wood TV, it's great to be here. Mike Rogers, listen, I'm the youngest of 5 boys. Been in Michigan for over 50 years. My father was a shop teacher. My mom worked at the local Chamber of Commerce. I'm a husband. I'm a father. Both of my kids are fantastic. My daughter does occupational therapy. My son is just getting out of military service. When you look at the challenges that we have, a background like mine, fighting crime on the streets, my military service, I went to University of Michigan to get my ROTC, which is a little bit of a sticking point with my wife, who is a diehard Michigan State alumni. But we're getting over that, and we're getting through it. Why would we even get back into this business, if you will? It's because people, our families, are hurting in Michigan. They can't afford gas. They can't afford their electric bill. We have folks that are going to food pantries at the end of the month. We don't have to do it that way. The border, gas, EV mandates. We should talk about all of this evening.
The border.
Thank you. Let's get right to our question.
In Michigan.
Here is where we start. Even as we speak, there is a major storm that is bearing down on Florida. FEMA's response to some of the disasters we've seen recently have come into question throughout the South and even right here in Michigan. FEMA denied disaster relief after a tornado that struck Portage in Kalamazoo County in May. Congresswoman Slotkin, how will you prioritize FEMA and make sure that they have the funds to meet the needs of the disasters that we're seeing nationwide? You have 60 seconds.
It's a great question. We've had actually 9 people die in the state of Michigan in the past year from 6 tornadoes that have touched down. 4 of them have been in the district that I represent, so I've been visiting those places. And you're right, sometimes we got federal assistance, sometimes we didn't. What is happening right now in North Carolina, and certainly what they're fearing in Florida, is terrifying. And we need to make sure that our disaster response is prepared for the next generation. We know we're going to have more storms. We're going to have stronger storms. We're going to have extreme weather. And FEMA needs to be prepared not just with the right personnel, but with enough cash to actually handle all those things. So for me, I was on the Homeland Security Committee. We oversaw FEMA's budget. We increased the money that they need per year, because we don't know where the next disaster is going to come from, but it's the responsibility of the federal government to deal with what we were dealing with here in Michigan, which is true disasters when there's a sort of an act of God that happens here in our state.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Congressman Rogers, it's the same question for you. How would you prioritize to make sure FEMA's got the money to meet the needs that are out there that we see on a regular basis? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, FEMA is an important organization, has important work to do. One of the things that makes no sense in this last 6 years, if you will, is the fact that FEMA spent almost $700 million on housing illegals and now just told North Carolina they don't have enough money to take care of American citizens who are in desperate need in the middle of a disaster. So here you have a wide open border in our South where the government, including my opponent, who have voted for funding of illegal immigrants, housing, food, phones, right? That comes out of the FEMA budget. And so, listen, this is something really, really important. If we're going to get spending under control in Washington, D.C., the last thing we need to be doing is spending money on illegal immigrants. Close the border, fix that problem, make sure that FEMA focuses on Americans and in their time of need.
Congressman, you have a 30-second rebuttal. Would you include in that a response to the congressman's comments about the money from FEMA, please?
Sure. Look, I think no one is proud of what's going on at the southern border. But if the idea is that as a federal representative, the job we're both running to represent, we have to make sure that you have the resources needed for emergencies that are happening right now, today, in our state, in the state of Michigan. That means prioritizing funding. We have plenty of things to do on the border, and I hope we have an opportunity to get into that. I am the congresswoman in this state who has done more border security legislation. I'm a CIA officer who spent my life protecting the country. So we have to talk about the southern border. I hope we will get to that. But we also have to make sure FEMA is ready to address the problems here in Michigan now.
Thank you. Congressman Rogers, you have 30 seconds, and just if you can include, would you appropriate or be in favor of appropriating more money for FEMA?
Well, we have to get it right, first of all. Again, diverting that money for illegals coming across the border is an absolute non-starter for me, and it really should be a non-starter for most Michigan citizens. Again, my opponent voted and voted and voted to allow that money to go to illegal immigrants. And to say now that she has done more for the border, listen, 6 months of campaign ads don't make up for 6 years of really bad policy and bad judgment. We've got to fix the thinking back in Washington, D.C.
Now let's move on to the escalating tensions that are in the Middle East.
The Fed in my chat saying the majority of U.S. very likely views being a CIA officer as a plus. Said the Fed.
Certainly been harmed in this.
I love you, Flash.
Launched missiles into Israel. So with all of that, the question is, Congressman Rogers, is there a red line that Israel could cross that would lose your support?
You know, I think one of the big problems of people have been trying to be on both sides of this issue. We could have a ceasefire tomorrow if Hamas would give up the hostages. We have 4 Americans still there. Those Americans should be brought home.
They've made that offer.
Out of their homes viciously on October
multiple
7th,
times.
Dragged into the tunnels of Gaza. Right? So I think that right now, what we should do is support Israel getting this piece right, frame out a ceasefire based on getting the hostages out first. They need the ability to defend themselves. They're being attacked from the north. They're having.
I just thought this picture was interesting.
From Gaza. And where all of this has started is in Tehran. And so if we don't contain Tehran, I'm telling you what, we'll have more trouble. We'll be more engulfed in the Middle East.
I want to give you 15 seconds. Is there a red line that Israel could cross that would lose your support?
Well, I mean, hypotheticals don't work in this. They have to defend themselves. You have to remember, Iran is coming at them through Hezbollah. Iran is coming at them through Hamas. Iran has attacked 200 installations across the Middle East since October 7th.
Congressman Slotkin, the same question to you. Is there a red line beyond which Israel could go that would lose your support?
Yeah, well, I was just at a memorial service yesterday for our 1-year anniversary.
I mean, if they haven't crossed it yet.
It's very personal here in Michigan, where people of all stripes have real personal connections to the region. For me, it's clear we need a ceasefire deal that brings the hostages home. Israel has the right to defend itself when people come and kill their citizens, rape women, shoot ballistic missiles at them. That is something that any country in the world has the right to do. But we can also say that we don't like seeing loss of life among civilians. Iran is now in a very interesting moment. Their big proxies have been killed or been wiped down in Hezbollah and Hamas, and they just fired a really strategic round of ballistic missiles, including hypersonic missiles. Israel has, again, the right to respond to that. But for me, what I won't do is I won't say that the United States should get back into a big land war in the Middle East. We spent 20 years in Iraq, and I served 3 tours there alongside the military. For me, I am not interested in having another 20-year war in the Middle East.
Same question to you, 15 seconds to answer. Is there a red line beyond?
This is the Michigan Senate debate.
That will lose your support.
Again, the idea that we would be sucked into putting American sons and daughters in there. My opponent was a very big supporter of the Iraq War. He was one of the leaders that got us into that war. I do not support another land war in the Middle East.
Congressman Rogers, you have a 30-second rebuttal to try to deal with all of these issues, including that red line.
Yeah, unfortunately, my opponent was wrong on all of this. The architect of the nuclear deal with Iran, the fact that she supported making sure that Saudi couldn't defend itself against the Houthis, taking the Houthis off the terrorist list, which, by the way, is now shooting at U.S. troops, including our Navy, in the Red Sea, making Iran have the capital by allowing them to sell oil into the market, has engulfed us in the Middle East. Bad decision, bad decision, bad decision. Not standing up to the fact that they're using their proxies across the Middle East, not only to attack Israel, our ally, but it's also to attack those 100 different installations around the Middle East.
Congresswoman Flack, can you have a 30-second
I just want to say one thing. There's one of us on this stage who has been on the receiving end of Iranian rockets, Iranian mortars, Iranian IEDs, in 3 tours in Iraq. I know intimately what it's like to have Iranian terrorism kill my friends. So I take a backseat to no one on the issue of Iran. I am as hawkish as anyone. They have been our adversary for 50 years. We need to pressure them, to deter them, to contain them.
Congresswoman Slotkin, next question, and this hits home especially for some of our citizens on the east side of the state. Michigan has one of the largest Arab American populations in the country.
Yeah, you would have thought she would have made mention of them based on the Arab population.
Hamas or Hezbollah has the current political structure and is allowed to remain in charge. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, a ceasefire deal has to actually work to get the hostages back, right? They took hostages a year ago. They need to be returned. That has to be a formal part of it. And then they can't be able to project power into the state of Israel, right? We all deeply care about civilian casualties. We have a humanitarian disaster going on in Gaza. But just yesterday, Hamas fired missiles inside of Israel. Hezbollah fired missiles inside of Israel. They have to be able to, you have to understand that a ceasefire deal means that you can't project violence into the...
Israel fired missiles
so we need
inside of Lebanon.
To come at a point where they can't project violence onto this state. Israel has the right to defend itself from that.
Move on to you with the same question, Congressman Rogers. I mean, with this current situation with Hamas and Hezbollah, is it possible to get all of the sides to get to a ceasefire?
Well, you can never go into anything thinking it's never possible. I think a ceasefire could happen today if we could get the hostages out. You can't have a government in Gaza run by Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. They clearly demonstrated who they are. They assassinated hostages in the tunnels along the way. What we have to do now is find that place where we can get those hostages out and then have further dialogue. But the problem is Iran is still coming at us. And so I understand my opponent's notion that there's somehow serving in Iraq gives permission to be wrong in the entire effort toward Iran. Remember, we are engulfed in the Middle East from really bad policy. They are drawing the United States, the Democrats, along with the support of their congressional allies, including my opponent, into a wider conflict. What you see happening, bad decision, bad decision, bad decision.
Congresswoman Slott, can you have a 30-second rebuttal, and you can address, including the congressman's suggestion that you were wrong?
Sure. Well, I think it's important that we do reflect our records. The congressman was elected for 20 years. He was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. In the run-up to the Iraq War, there was no greater supporter, there's no greater fist pumper than Mike Rogers in leading us into that war. So if we're talking about why the Middle East the way it is the way it is, we had 20 years embroiled in Iraq, 20 years embroiled in Afghanistan, men and women, Americans dead.
I one up, tip one back. I need it.
Extremely cautious when you're talking about these issues. And I will not succumb to bellicose talk on that.
Congressman Rogers, you have a 30-second rebuttal, and we've heard a lot of conversations, so wrap this question up.
And why this is a little offensive to me is I had my family in the military during the Iraq buildup. And so I was more cautious than most about us being, using military force within the region. And by the way, that information that was given to Congress was based on the CIA at a time that my opponent was in the CIA doing analytical work. And so if you think about how dangerous this is, and listen, I get it, the CIA has deception training. My opponent clearly went through that, but you're supposed to use that against Michigan voters.
Moving on to another subject, and that's the economy. This is one that has been really vexing. The latest Wood Emerson College poll says 51% of the voters call it their #1 concern, because prices are too high. And by the way, this is echoed across the country. People are paying too much for everything from food to gasoline. Congressman Rogers, specifically, if you're elected, what can and what will you do to help bring down prices? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah. I have traveled around the state. I have never seen such hurt in people's families as I have now. Met a young woman who has 4 kids. She works part-time. Her husband works full-time in a small factory in Michigan. In tears, talked about how in the last 2 or 3 days of the month, she has to go to a food pantry to feed her family. This is absolutely unacceptable. And why? They poured money. My opponent voted for all of it. Trillions of dollars of spending that has raised the cost of groceries, raised the cost of gasoline. It has made the average family in Michigan about $12,000 in the hole before they start out with inflationary numbers. And so here's the things that I would do. We have to absolutely become energy.
Thank you, Lenny, for giving out the gift subs.
Policy, but if we don't get gas prices down, we won't get food prices down. There is no sense from buying oil from Venezuela when we have capability here in this country. Regulation has to stop. $1.6 trillion in new regulation coming out of Washington, D.C. And lastly, spending. We have got to get our arms around spending.
Congresswoman Slotkin, you have called yourself Team Normal. You have said that prices are too high, and your priority is tackling inflation. So the same question is, what are you going to do? What can you do to get prices down?
Yeah, it really is the most common issue. Thank you. It really is the most common issue I think anybody hears when they're walking around. I can't go into a grocery store without someone grabbing my arms and telling me I can't afford this, I can't afford summer camp for my kids, I can't afford people are hurting. They feel shame about it. And so for me, there's really 3 things that I've been working on doing that I believe in. Number 1 is bringing supply chains back home from places like China. That includes the 44 manufacturing facilities that are being built right now in the state of Michigan. You need a good job with good benefits. Number 2, it's attacking the primary costs that are just burning a hole in people's pockets. Healthcare, prescription drugs. We finally allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices. You've got to bring down costs like housing.
I got a solution for that.
And then number 3, you got to keep more money in your pocket that you earn, right? Taxes and
Medicare for all.
Things like the Earned Child Tax Credit. Give credit to middle-class families instead of breaks to the ultra-wealthy.
Thank you. Congressman Rogers, you have a 30-second rebuttal, and we're talking about bringing prices down. 30 seconds.
If you want to help the middle class, you don't do it by raising prices. You don't do it by absolutely reckless spending in Washington, D.C. Since my opponent's been elected, we have lost in this state 29,000 manufacturing jobs. I worked in an assembly plant in Michigan. These jobs are critical. The average price of those jobs, the average wage of those 29,000 jobs, $72,000. You cannot continue to say you're for the middle class and eliminate the very ability for people to work into the middle class by these high-paying manufacturing jobs.
Congresswoman Slotkin, same. You have a 30-second rebuttal, and we're talking about the economy.
Yeah, again, this is where it's really...
Both look like Republicans, honestly.
It's really important. Mr. Rogers says that he cares about costs. Let's just talk Medicare negotiating drug prices, right? It's the Costco model. You walk into a Costco, you know you're going to get a lower price because you're buying in bulk. Mike Rogers voted 5 times against allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. VA insurance, military insurance, all are allowed to negotiate drug prices. The Canadians can, but not the Americans. That is just pure, unadulterated greed on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry.
Let's move on. We have seen what has happened with a 50% surge in housing prices from 2012 to 2022. And every year to year, the median housing prices have risen by more than 5.5%. Vice President Kamala Harris proposes a $25,000 program for first-time home buyers, along with tax incentives for builders. So, Congressman Slotkin, should taxpayers be used to help taxpayers' dollars, I should say, be used to help first-time home
I
buyers.
love that every problem is
I'd
just,
like to see the details of that
capitalism.
program, but I can tell you what I do believe in just talking to Michiganders and what has actually worked. Right now, we're helping to build an apartment building in Okemos. It's a public-private partnership, right? It's some public money, but it's a lot of private builder money, and they'll put aside a certain number of units that are for affordable housing. Up north, we're working on workforce housing. If you're a cop, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, and you can't afford to live in Traverse City, how do we make sure that you can do your job and actually live not an hour away, but in the community? Public-private partnership again. There's a lot of different ways that we can do it, but it's about increasing the housing stock. We need more houses. We need more production of houses. Again, I'm not sure about the president or the vice president, excuse me, program, because I think, I just haven't looked at the details. I can tell you what I voted on, and it's expanding housing for people who are in the middle class.
Congressman Rogers, you too are going to be getting this question, and the question is, first of all, $25,000 be enough to help somebody buying a first-time home, and should we use federal tax dollars or taxpayers' money to do that?
Well, if you talk to anybody that's in the housing business, they'll tell you by the federal government walking in and plopping down $25,000, you've just increased the cost of housing by about $25,000. It doesn't work. The number one reason people can't afford homes, including in my own family, is the interest rates. So people who want to go move up in a house can't do it because they're at a 3%. And by the way,
the interest rate was like 16% in the 80s, you dipshit.
Buyers, they can't make up the difference between what it used to be about 3% just 4 years ago, and now you see those housing rates so expensive. And my opponent has voted 100% with the Biden-Harris agenda, 100%. And if you think about what that means that she's likely to go in and vote for this $25,000 and every other scheme that will only increase the cost of housing. If you want to get to the root of this, we have to stop spending. We have to stop borrowing that money from countries like China, money we don't have, $35 trillion, and start bringing it back under control so we can get interest rates.
We don't
down. That's the number.
Borrow money from China.
Congresswoman Slotkin, you have 30 seconds.
You're in debt to ourselves.
30 seconds. If you could address the idea, if you agree with the concept of using that money for first-time house buying.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to correct the record for a second. And it's on the issue of bipartisanship, which I think is really important when you're running to be Michigan senator, right? We're a very purple state, lots of Democrats, lots of Republicans. I was voted the 14th most bipartisan member of Congress out of 435. I voted and split with my party more than 97% of other Democrats, on average a couple times every month. In contrast to Mr. Rogers, who was literally the whip for his party, the guy who got everyone to vote with the Republicans. I believe deeply in bipartisanship, and he's misstating the record.
Congressman Rogers, you can have your 30 seconds rebuttal and comment on what the Congresswoman just said.
Yeah, listen, for the first 3 years, the agenda that brought us high gas prices, high grocery prices, that brought us, your electric bill almost doubling, eggs about a 90% increase in cost, came from that 100% of voting with the Biden-Harris agenda. Now, you can find a vote here and a vote there. I was in Congress, know how that works. When you're talking about the issues...
I would love to see her naked.
100%. And so what I think is
not Alyssa Slotkin,
and certainly deceptive, is saying that you are you vote against your party, but you vote for all of the things that have raised your prices here at home.
I want to go to our first viewer question, and happy to have this that's dealing with social programs, and happy to have my colleague Amber Kriska here. She has that first question. Amber?
Thanks, Rick. Our first viewer question is from David in Grand Rapids. He wants to know, what will your campaigns do to strengthen Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare?
You heard the question. What would you do to strengthen Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare? Congressman Rogers, you have 60 seconds.
When I was on the day of 9/11, I had a presentation to the Budget Committee, and that presentation was about making sure that Congress didn't continue to take money out of the trust fund to spend on other things. One of the first things we should be doing is protecting the Social Security Trust Fund. Listen, my parents survived on Social Security and Medicare. My in-laws are surviving on Social Security and Medicare now. I know too many people in my family where this is important. I argue the things that we can do to bring down costs, we should bring down costs across the board. Medicare transparency is a big factor here. On Social Security, listen, it's in trouble. The current plan that we see coming out of Washington, D.C. has let it ride until there's a 26% cut. We have to get together in a bipartisan way to stop that from happening. I've seen no action to that end, and it's going to be a really important issue that we protect and preserve Medicare and Social Security.
Congresswoman Slotkin, our viewer wants to know what you will do to protect Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. You have 60 seconds.
Bring down costs like the towers.
We are very different. And again, we both have voting records on this. For me, I believe it is essential, and it's been a very personal issue for me, to have access to health care. I think it's extremely important that if you work your entire life, you have the safety of knowing you're not going to end your life in poverty. I believe in supporting Medicare, supporting Social Security. Mike Rogers voted to either privatize or cut Medicare and Social Security over and over and over again. He voted to raise the age of retirement. It's all in the record. Just check the facts. So it's not about what he's going to do. It's what about he's already done. It is not about the talking points when you're sitting here in front of a TV camera. It's about what you will do and what you have done when you held the seat, when you were in the
I think he was just mumbling.
So for me, whether it's allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices so we actually save something from Medicare, whether it's changing retirement as we knew it, redefining it as he proposes, we couldn't be more different on this issue.
Congressman Rogers, you obviously disagree with what Congresswoman Slotkin just said, and you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Dishonest and deceptive. And we've seen that over and over and over again. And on this issue, it is exactly the same. I'm not even sure she could pass the polygraph test in the CIA anymore. When you look at what we have to do to protect it, fear and scare.
Polygraphs are bullshit.
To get it done. Nor did I do the things that she suggested I did. Again, my family, listen, I get it. My opponent came from a very wealthy family. I did not. We came from a middle-class family here in Michigan. We counted on Social Security. We count on Medicare. My father had cancer. I had cancer when I was 19. These issues are big and they're personal, and I will do everything to protect Medicare and Social Security.
Now to you, Congresswoman Slotkin. You have 30 seconds in rebuttal.
Sure. Look, there's no need to throw names around here or yell epithets at each other. We have a record. He voted to raise the retirement age.
I like calling people dumb fucks.
In his record, it's public. I'm not sure he remembers. He's been down in Florida for a few years, but your record when you vote in Congress is public. So we know that you voted to privatize or cut Social Security. We know that you voted 5 times against allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices, like the most simple thing. Just makes sense to the common person. So for me, it's not about throwing names. It's not about deception or mentioning the CIA. It's about what you did when you held the job.
Thank you, both candidates. It's time for you to take a breath and maybe even a drink of water. We're going to take a very quick break. And when we're...
This is the Michigan Senate debate. On the left is Alyssa Slotkin, current Congresswoman. The Democrat on the right is Mike Rogers, former Congressman, Republican. We are doing the Colorado 8th Congressional District debate immediately following this. If you are new here, I am JustinFREAKIN. This is the Troll Patrol Live. We cover the most absurd news, politics, and current events on the internet. Please give me a follow and subscribe.
Get as much information about how you feel about them as possible. Sales for EVs compared to what had been projected by some auto dealers are just not there. Still, in Michigan, we have plans for 2 EV battery plants, and they continue. We've seen the downsizing of the Blue Oval near Battle Creek, along with a plant proposed near Big Rapids that's been embroiled in controversy. Congresswoman Slotkin, here's the question. Are EV battery plants right for Michigan? And if they are, why are they? You have 60 seconds.
Sure. Look, I don't care what kind of car you want to drive. I don't care if it's a gas-powered car or an EV. I live on a dirt road. I can't have an EV for the foreseeable future. What I do care about is who is going to build the next generation of vehicles. right? Literally, it's either going to be us or China. Right now, China is eating our lunch on these types of vehicles. And Michigan has had the experience of missing these trends, right? In the 70s and 80s, we said, oh, everyone loves their big cars. No one ever is going to buy a little fuel-efficient vehicle. And then the Japanese and the Koreans came in and ate our lunch, and we've never made up that market share. So I do not care what you want to drive, but if the answer is who's going to build them, I want that to be Team America, not Team China. I want Michigan to build them. And to me, I just don't understand this idea of just ceding that ground to China. My opponent is happy to let them eat our lunch in places like Europe and South America. I am not willing to do that. American auto workers are the best, and they should make them.
Congressman Rogers, are EV plants right for Michigan? You have 60 seconds.
You know, I talked to a lot of these auto workers. As I said, I worked on the assembly line.
Yeah, Toyota makes more cars in America than Ford or GM, if I'm not mistaken.
In D.C., 85% of everything that's processed in an electric vehicle has to go through China. Why in God's green earth we would cede that auto market to the Communist Party of China is beyond me. My opponent has multiple times supported EV mandates, trying to pick the cars that our companies have to build and the cars that you're going to have to buy. And by the way, that got us 2,400 layoffs at Stellantis, 1,000 layoffs at General Motors. Ford is talking about closing 2 lines. The CEO of Ford came out and said, this is unworkable. It won't work for America. There's a better way to get where we want to go, like hybrids. By the way, you don't have to plug it in, and you get to keep the auto workers that are here in the state. About 1 million are reliant on building something, a part or something for a gasoline engine. Why we would take 40% of that labor off the table is beyond me.
Best vehicle I ever owned was a Toyota.
I assume there's a lot of things in
Yeah, I mean, again,
I've only owned a Chevy and a Toyota, though.
Claims to care about national security. If you're worried about EVs being built abroad, if you're worried about China having the supply chain, then come back and join us here in Michigan, where we've been trying to bring back our supply chains ever since COVID. We all had our come to Jesus. We all figured out that we had overextended ourselves into China, so we started bringing all kinds of parts back, all kind of mining back, all kinds of things that are important to that supply chain. I am not going to just give it up to China, and my opponent certainly seems to be okay with that.
Congressman Rogers, you have a rebuttal, and again, you all have some real differences here, so you have 30 seconds to try to point out what those are.
And when my opponent talks about bringing things back, she signed a non-disclosure agreement to facilitate a Chinese Communist Party company going up near Big Rapids to bring in Chinese engineers to build a factory that makes components, of which 85% of the components in that battery have to be processed in China. Oh, by the way, when it's fully operating, takes 40% of Michigan auto workers and gets rid of them. Why that is a good plan when there are other things we can do. The electric grid isn't even ready to handle it. We got to fix that. We got to make sure that hybrids is an interim step here before we get to the next one. You beat China by selling Americans cars they want to buy.
Congressman, we're out of time. I want to give you 15 seconds. Congressman said you had signed an NDA. This has been a point of contention between the two of you. So my question, 15 seconds, did you sign an NDA?
I have never signed an NDA with any Chinese government, Chinese entity, Chinese company at all. I found out about that plant when it was in the paper. He repeats it. It is a lie. The Detroit News and every other news source credible has said it so. He should stop repeating it.
Thank you.
True.
Congressman Rogers, I'm going to let you talk about that, but it's in this next question. You've expressed concern over the potential Goshen ties to the Chinese government. You did that including a rally that was very near the site where that's going to be built or proposed to be built. What evidence do you have? How can you document that Goshen is a Chinese company? And feel free in your 60 seconds to address the conversation we just began.
Sure. And by the way, don't believe me, go to slotkinnda.com. You'll see the signed NDA, number one. Number two, the incorporation papers from this company clearly show it is affiliated and must abide by the Chinese Constitution, including their CEO, who is a senior member of the Chinese Communist Party. And we knew this was going to be a problem. Matter of fact, Congresswoman Slotkin's boss, former boss, Leon Panetta, said this will be used for espionage activities. There's no doubt in my mind why they're bringing Chinese engineers on here to Michigan. And if you think that's crazy, The FBI just arrested 5 Chinese nationals spying at Camp Grayling, which is pretty darn close to where this factory is going to be. We need to take a deep breath and step back. Listen, there's a better way to get where people want to go, and it's not trying to bring the Chinese to Michigan, as she has been part and parcel of doing.
Congresswoman Slotkin, do you have any concerns about the appearance of Chinese government involvement in the Goshen plant? And what would you say to the people near where that plant is being proposed who do have concerns? You have 60 seconds.
So again, I've never signed an NDA with any Chinese company, any Chinese government. He repeats it. It's a lie. The old Mike Rogers from 2014 wouldn't be messing around when it comes to national security, but the Mike Rogers of 2024 seems happy to do it. I'm sad about that. But here's the thing. I was the one who wrote the legislation that said we should be able to ban the Chinese from buying our farmland, ban the Chinese from buying our manufacturing facilities. It's bipartisan legislation. I'd love to have his support from it. You shouldn't have these companies buying our manufacturing sites or our farmland without a full national security vetting. This is what I used to do for a living. We passed legislation, or we're working on, passing legislation to do it. This is where I stand on this issue. But the reason why he likes to repeat these lies is because when he left Congress and went to go work as a consultant, he was the chief security officer of AT&T when they were actively working to get Chinese companies into our telecoms. That's literally the same time. So for me, he's trying to distract from his own record of helping the Chinese get into our telecommunication systems.
We could talk about this subject for the rest of the debate. We're not going to, but we are for the next 60 seconds. So you have a...
She signed an NDA, but like it was...
Congressman, please go ahead.
Tangentially involving that project?
When I was...
wasn't for the company or China?
10 years, basically. I had a security clearance. If I wanted to work for a Chinese company, which I would not, I couldn't do it. So she makes these charges. They're aspersions, and it is unfortunate. And this is the same member of Congress who has been deceiving us on the NDA. I never signed an NDA. Well, we find out she did sign an NDA. She has been involved. She did take money from Chinese agents who were involved in the process of bringing it here.
I just have to respond to this.
30 you have 30 seconds.
What he just said, honestly, is offensive. And again, the Mike Rogers of 2014, the Mike Rogers that people thought they knew, who cared about national security and say it should never, be divisive at the water's edge, is now a completely different guy. To accuse people of these kinds of things, especially a CIA officer, is offensive, and he needs to rethink how badly he wants the seat, how desperate he is to make a move like that.
All right, members, we're going to change the subject, although I know there's a lot of passion on that, and we could go on, but there are other things that we need to discuss. Biden administration announced last week its support for $1.5 billion in federal loan guarantees to restart the Palisade nuclear power plant in Van Buren County. Now, if the Nuclear Regulatory Commission gives the go-ahead, it would be the first restart of a nuclear power plant in U.S. history. Congresswoman Slotkin, do you support the restart of the plant and the use of federal taxpayer dollars for nuclear projects? You have 60 seconds.
I do. I supported actively the restart of the Palisades plant because we're going to need more energy. Everybody knows, because of the phones in their pockets and all the electronics they use, we're going to need more energy as a country, and we need the grid to be updated to deal with that. For that, we need literally an all-of-the-above approach. We need the whole menu. We need nuclear. We need traditional forms of energy, wind, solar, natural gas. We need the whole gambit. And I think, for me, what's most important is to just take a very practical view of this. I worked at the Pentagon. In the Pentagon, we basically mitigate risk by having diversity of sources, right? You never want to be just devoted only to one energy source because, God forbid, something happens and you run out of gas, or you run out of fuel, or so you have redundancy. And to me, an all-of-the-above approach, including nuclear, is the way to do it.
Congressman Rogers, again, the same question for you, the restart of the plant. Do you support that idea, and do you support using federal dollars for that and for other nuclear projects? 60 seconds.
Absolutely. We're going to have a 57% increase in need off of our electric grid. Everything, from AI operation, which is a big power suck. You're talking cryptocurrency. And if you have any electrification going into the grid by cars, you're going to need a lot more power.
Oh, my God.
The grid can't handle it. Nuclear and small modular nuclear reactors, something I've been working on for a while, is exactly the way to do it. And I just want to say this to my point. I get the huffing at the microphone. If you care about national security, you cannot cede our economic future to the Communist Party of China. And well, then you should have acted
in Michigan,
that way.
Man, let's do it.
Absolutely, you should have done it that way. Bringing in the opportunity for Chinese companies to operate here in the United States is, to me, is just you cannot get promoted to the Senate if you don't understand how the Chinese operate.
Congresswoman Slotkin, we have a 30-second rebuttal. I don't think I have to set it up for you. You both have expressed yourself, so tell me where we are in this.
Yeah, the thing that's tough is that in Washington, in the Armed Services Committee, I'm on the committee. It's one of the most bipartisan committees that still exists. With all the mess that's in Washington, that committee, because it's on national security, it just really remains a bipartisan place. And the most bipartisan issue is China. It's where we work together. It's where we banned things like Huawei. It's where we literally took on the TikTok issue. It is, to me, the most bipartisan thing. And it's just sad that a guy who considers himself
the TikTok issue
can't see that we need to work together on this issue, not lie repeatedly. Let's get to work, man.
Congressman Rogers, 30 seconds as we leave this issue.
Yeah, listen, and I will look for every opportunity to be bipartisan. But this is a fundamental flaw in judgment about what the Chinese are doing to us. Intellectual property theft. The fact that they are buying homeland. My opponent's been there 6 years. We haven't seen anything to get done. And so an election year is great. You can be bipartisan in an election year. 100% with the Biden-Slotkin agenda that made energy more expensive. It made groceries more expensive. It made your fact that your kids can't buy a home. Your car payments are high. 23%, by the way, in new repossessions of cars up.
Let's go back to Amber now with another viewer question. And Amber, please take it.
All right, thanks, Rick. In 2022, Michigan voters approved Prop 3, called Reproductive Freedom for All, with a vote of nearly 57%. Bonnie from Thur asked in part, why do you believe it is okay for the government to interfere in women's reproductive health decisions?
Thank you, Amber. Congressman Rogers, that's Bonnie from Thur, who says, why do you believe that the government should interfere in women's reproductive health decisions if you do? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for the question. I think this is the most heart-wrenching a decision a woman will ever have to make. I think those decisions are best made where her doctor is, where her family is, where her faith is. And in 2022, to set aside what was a divisive issue across America, states got to make the determination. The people of Michigan voted overwhelmingly to make abortion legal and a part of the state constitution of Michigan. I will do nothing when I go back to Washington, D.C., to do anything that would change what the Michigan Constitution, voted on by the people of Michigan, have given us that guidance to go back.
Congresswoman Slotkin, same question to you. Do you believe it is okay for the government to interfere in women's decisions about reproductive health? You have 60 seconds.
I believe in a woman's right to choose. I did not support overturning Roe v. Wade. And if a bill came in front of the U.S. Senate to codify Roe, I would vote for it. But I think this is a really important distinction between the two of us. Mike Rogers was 20 years as a legislator. He voted for every single ban, every restriction, every bill that came across his desk to make it harder for a woman and to ban, in some cases, a woman and her right to choose. 56 times in total. We checked the math. To me, every single time he was casting one of those votes, he was saying something very particular. He was saying to women, he does not trust you to make your own decisions about your own family planning, every single time. When it comes to our rights and protecting ourselves, I think it is important that we have someone in the seat who does that. He voted and sponsored bills that would make it impossible to have IVF and contraception. If he does not trust us to protect our own rights, do not trust him.
Congressman, you've got 30 seconds.
Deceive and deception. And it's just been the constant theme of my opponent from the very beginning of this campaign. I have come out and talked about making sure that IVF is available for families so they can grow their families.
Now,
It's a very personal thing for these families, and I support it 100%. What she's saying is, I don't trust you people of Michigan. She wants to go back to Washington, D.C. and put our vote in Michigan at risk with the rest of the country, with states that don't agree with us. I'm telling you that this is such a personal issue, and we've decided. This issue is decided as of 22. I won't go back to Washington and change that decision.
You have 30 seconds.
So I was here in Michigan, and I voted yes on Proposition 3. You were in Florida. You voted in Florida. You weren't here. For some people, this issue is a talking point. He's put his finger in the wind and he says, now I can't win if I don't, look good on this issue. And so he's changed 30 years of being unilaterally pro-life, of never breaking once with his party on this issue, right? So it's not a talking point to women. It is our lives. It's whether we bleed to death in a parking lot. It's who and when gets to decide how we have a family. Do not trust him.
All right, let's get another viewer question from Amber.
All right, thanks, Rick. More than 10 million migrants have crossed the border since
I don't want to talk over the candidate.
authorization.
Unless I have a really good line, I'll chime in.
Michael from Granville wants to know, what is your plan for these 10 million immigrants?
As we looked at the question from Michael, it makes a point. It took President Biden 3 years to come up with some executive orders, somewhat like Trump era, like Remain in Mexico policy. Congresswoman Slotkin, are you in favor of keeping those kind of executive orders in place? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, so look.
It's 10 million since like the 80s or something, isn't it?
It's been broken for a long time, and what's going on at the southern border, no one is proud of, right? I have someone who has protected the homeland my entire life as a job, as a CIA officer and Pentagon official. Every country in the world has the right to know who's coming in its borders and what they're doing here. In my mind, we absolutely need to do more at the southern border, and we were working on a deal to actually provide more resources to our border agents, deal with that bleeding ulcer that we have down there. To me, if you are not here legally, you should not be here. You should go back to your home country and be removed to your home country. That's why I've done more border legislation than any member of Congress, Democrat or Republican, here in Michigan. It's why we passed a bill to stem fentanyl. But it's also, if I can be honest, to me, part and parcel of a bigger conversation. We need legal vetted immigration. Our farmers need it. Our folks in Mackinac need it for their hotels and their fudge shops. Until we get our immigration system right, we're going to have a bleeding problem at the border.
I'm going to ask you both to stay pretty close on time. We're getting close to the end of this. We have a hard out. Congressman Rogers, to you, former President Trump has called for mass deportation of some of these migrants that we are talking about who entered the U.S. illegally. Is that something you would support, and how would you go about it? You have
I'm very
60
delighted
seconds.
to hear that my opponent has had a conversion about border security. She's been there for 6 years, voted with Biden-Harris 100% of the time, including, it is absolutely correct. And here's the thing. You can't vote against the wall. You can't vote against sanctuary cities. You cannot do the things that you've been doing and allowing 10 million people to come into our country. We've spent something like $450 billion on taking care of illegals, room and board and phones and health care. That's enough money to pay for every Michigan teacher and every Michigan state trooper for 15 years. The fentanyl that's coming across the border has killed almost 3,000 Michigan citizens every year. This has been a catastrophe, and we have seen absolutely nothing. Saying you signed a few letters, this is something that should get our blood going for what it is doing to the United States of America. I'm going to go back, and I will fix and secure the border first thing.
Congresswoman Slotkin.
Sure. Look, you,
30 seconds.
Yes, you said that I was proudly part of Team Normal, right? I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Just be normal, civil, reasonable, get in and solve your differences. We had a negotiation going on that would provide tremendous resources to the border. It was bipartisan. It was exactly what Democrats and Republicans want their leaders to be doing. Sitting in a room, no Twitter, no tweeting. And Mike Rogers and his allies came in and said, no, we'd rather use it as a political talking point in an election year rather than actually deal with our problems. I want to close the border. He wants to keep it open, apparently.
Congress, 30 seconds.
Yeah. So nobody was more bipartisan when I was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. I know how to put coalitions together to solve big problems. There has been no big problem solved by my opponent in the entire 6 years she's been back in Washington, D.C., number one. The bill that she's talking about had bipartisan opposition. You can't make legal 2 million illegal immigrants every single year. Look at the crime. Look at the problems that it...
We were against it because it's inhumane, you dipshit.
The problem. It was a bill to exasperate and make permanent the problem. It was really a disaster of a bill.
Candidates, it is hard to believe, but we have come to closing statements. First of all, I want to thank you again for being here tonight. I'm going to ask you both to stick to 60 seconds on these because of our timing.
Oh, yeah, because this was so much fun. Time just flew by.
Order, so our candidate doesn't have the first and last word. You'll go with the first closing statement. You have 60 seconds,
Great.
please.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you, Wood, for holding a really good debate. I think
Wood.
at the end of the day, the issue comes down to trust. Who do you trust to actually come and talk to you and then go and fight on your behalf in Washington? Fight on behalf of the middle class, of lowering your healthcare costs, of protecting your rights. It's really that formal question of who do you trust? For me, again, we couldn't be more different on a bunch of issues, but let me just make one particular appeal to the Republicans watching today, like my dad, right? For the Republicans who feel like their party has left them over the last few years. You will always have an open door in my office. You will always have a place at the table because I want to hear from you. I am very transparent. If you come to me with a good idea, if you come to me with pushback, you can prove, your case. I'm going to be open-minded. I'll even change my mind. So if you are wondering where your party has gone, come and vote for someone who actually gives a crap about you, who actually cares about getting something done the way
no politician gives a crap about you.
Civilly and decently.
Congressman Rogers, 60 seconds.
I was a young FBI agent working a sexual trafficking case. A young gal, 15 years old, ran away from home, got spotted by organized crime, recruited. They made her a stone-cold heroin addict within 30 days. We found her 2 years later. She had track marks in her fingers, between her toes. She was in pretty rough shape. She gets in the car, doesn't say a word. She stares out the window for 10 minutes. Never saying a word. And after about 10 minutes, without looking at us, she said, "Do you know why I didn't kill myself?" Why? Because I knew somebody cared enough to come find me. When you look at the problems around this state, families are hurting from the policies that have come out of Washington, D.C. The choice here could not be clearer. Killing jobs or creating jobs. Higher grocery prices, lower grocery prices. This is exactly the kind of choice we're going to have to face. A closed border or a wide open border that brings the problems of the South. Thank you very much. I would appreciate your vote on November 5th. I will have your back come November.
Candidates both, thank you very much. A couple of notes. Thanks. I want you to keep in mind that even as we are here tonight, people are voting. So absentee ballots are available, and if people are watching tonight, we encourage you to make a choice and vote. We have no vested interest in how you vote, but we think it's important that you do vote. Early in-person voting will begin on October 26th, and Election Day is November 5th, and we'll see how long it takes to get all the results back. I want to make a personal note to all of the people that helped make this program work for this past hour.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
How many people in?
That was the Michigan Senate debate. We had two big debates back to back. First, we did the California Senate debate. We just watched the Michigan Senate debate. We're getting ready to fire up the Colorado 8th Congressional District debate whenever we come back from commercial break. I will say at least both of them were intelligent and could speak clearly. I think this is the first debate that we've watched where both candidates could actually a downgrade from Stabenow. I would agree with that. Either of them will definitely be a downgrade from Stabenow, unfortunately. At least Mike Rogers wasn't drooling at the podium like we've seen so many other right-wing dipshits. Kind of like Steve Garvey was earlier. So when we come back, we're going to be firing up the Colorado 8th Congressional District. It's going to be a close one. The Cook Political Report has it as a toss-up. Now, I don't know who all is in the debate. There are 5 people running. Where there are 5 candidates. I don't know if we get all 5 of them in the debate. The incumbent, the currently serving Congresswoman is Yadira Caraveo. The Republican challenger is Gabe Evans. Chris Baum is going to be representing the Approval Voting Party. Susan Hall represents the Unity Party. And James Trebert is unaffiliated. I do not know how many of them qualified for the debate. We're going to find out on the other side of the break. It will be the Colorado 8th Congressional District debate.
We live in turbulent times. The media is full of deception, conspiracy theories, and fake news. Now, more than ever, it is important to ensure you're getting information from a source that's freaking reliable.
I'm Justin Mullins, and this is the Freakin' News.
Get a breaking or interesting story with a humorous twist in about a minute weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and more.
Somebody say weed. I'm not high enough for this shit. Goddamn. Hold on, let me pack a real one. I've been smoking on gunk because I'm going to re-up tomorrow. Goddamn! Energy Flow, welcome in. Let me see. I didn't get everybody curious or good evening. Simp, good evening, my friend. T-minus, I don't know if I told you good evening earlier, but welcome in. Alien, Joey, show a cat. Do you have a Lance, my friend? So glad to have you here. You have a preference. I have Socks and Smokey handy. Socks is the closest one. Right, don't play fair. Welcome in. So glad to have you as well. I don't know anybody else that snuck in on me. I'm sorry if I didn't give you a shout out. Shelly, good evening. Why would I need to be up when you get off in the morning? Maybe not. Yeah, let's do a lurker love. Do not have to bring me marijuana. I'm gonna get some tomorrow. Princess Kimberly, welcome in. Michael McAllister, I didn't get to welcome you in. Red Wine Terrorist, you are our lurker love of the day. You don't have to say anything. We just wanted to give you a shout out. We hadn't seen you in the chat. We appreciate you being here. Before we get started with the debate, which cats? You've showed 2 cats. Does anybody? Oh, there's for both. Okay, that works. Wingnut, good evening. I've thought about eating socks many times. I think he would be juicy. Smokey is like, yeah, I'm sorry. It should be show pussy. You're right, Energy Flow. I will make that happen. Nix, welcome in. Good evening. Okay, let me change the title here. We're gonna get the congressional race. I hope we have all the third-party candidates in there as well. I really do. And then I gotta pack another bowl. I still gotta redeem several rips. We've lost all our YouTube viewers now. They must have been here for the California debate. But did you notice how all of them did not have a substantive critique? Red wine. Thank you. Oh, that makes me feel so good. Echoplex promotes me, so I don't think they're keeping me a secret. Yes, shout out to producer Dave, Media Winch. Media Winch is the love of my life. I like how Con Man came in here. Was like, you two were fucking. No, but we might. You never know. Love me some Media Winch. All right, we're going to do the 8th Congressional District of Colorado debate. It actually took place just a little bit ago while we were watching a different debate. I think it's only a half hour. So some of you might be relieved that it's only a half hour. Well, I don't know if I can make it full screen for some reason. There we go.
Colorado's closest race for Congress is the 8th District, suburbs of Adams County up to Weld County, the most diverse district in the state, and it's seeing a first for Colorado.
This is not Lauren Boebert, though.
As the major party candidates. First-term Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo, the pediatrician turned state legislator, narrowly elected to this newly created seat 2 years ago. She has both endorsed and condemned Kamala Harris. Republican challenger Gabe Evans, a military vet, former police officer, and one-term state legislator who rode Donald Trump's endorsement to a resounding primary win. This is their only live debate. This is next.
Oh, it's only going to be the two of them? Oh, fuck off.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Clark. And I'm Marshall Zellinger. Please welcome Democratic Congresswoman Dr. Yadira Caraveo and Republican State Representative Gabe Evans. Be the last time you hear applause and any titles, educational or otherwise, used in this debate, as you, the voters, will determine who will hold the title representative.
The candidates have agreed to a couple of simple ground rules in advance. We will have 1-minute answers, rebuttals, and continued discussion at our discretion. 1 minute.
Their camera slipped down.
We only have 30 minutes, so let's get started on the issue of immigration. Donald Trump.
Immigration!
Friday in Aurora, which he has falsely claimed has been taken over by a Venezuelan gang. Trump said that getting the gang out of Aurora will be a bloody story. He calls the city a war zone. Aurora police say that the gang's presence is small and isolated. 10 members identified, 9 arrested. Trump says he will begin the largest deportation in American history in Aurora, Colorado, removing more than what he says is 20 million people from the United States. Mr. Evans, you have said Aurora has fallen. Do you support Trump's mass deportation plan to remove every person here illegally? And given that you have served in local law enforcement, the military, and the National Guard, what do you think about Trump's plan to use all 3 of those forces to do it?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you all for everyone coming here tonight. As you stated, I've served in the military and I've served in law enforcement, and so I know there's a couple of things that we have to do. I've been very clear with my 3-part plan. We must secure the border. Right now, Immigration and Customs says that we have over 13,000 convicted murderers who are free in our communities. We have over 99 individuals on the terrorist watch list who have been released into our communities. We have to secure our border. We have to create a path for folks who legally want to immigrate to the United States that doesn't trap them for decades in bureaucracy. And then we have to aggressively target those individuals who are illegally in our communities committing crimes, and those are the folks that we have to deport. I've never wavered from that, and I know that this is something that we have to do because we're currently the third most dangerous state in the country. That's a direct result of the policies that my opponent has voted for: open border policies, defund the police policies, policies that make it illegal for police in Colorado to even call immigration and customs, and I can fix it.
I want to make sure that we've got a clear answer to whether or not you support Donald Trump's plan to deport every person in this country illegally. He describes that as 21 million people or more. I heard you say deport people committing crimes. Do you support Trump's plan to deport each person?
We need to empower our law enforcement to be able to deport those folks that are committing crimes in our community. Once we start to enforce the laws, then I think what you'll see happen is those folks who have cut in the line will step back into the place in line that they should be, that they should have been in all along. My grandfather earned his citizenship to this country with 2 Purple Hearts in World War II as an immigrant from Mexico. And so we have to make sure that we are respecting the folks who did it the right way.
I was getting ready to say, you look awful swarthy.
I'm not certain that I heard an answer to the question about whether you support the Trump plan to deport every person here illegally, but you did mention your...
Because he didn't answer it.
...who you often cite in his heroism in World War II fighting the Nazis. Of course, Donald Trump echoes the dehumanizing rhetoric of the fascists that your grandfather fought on behalf of this country. Trump says that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. He says that they are animals.
God damn.
He invokes genetics, saying recently that immigrants who kill have bad genes, while telling a largely white crowd in Minnesota that they have good genes because of racehorse theory, which involves selective breeding. When you hear Donald Trump, whose endorsement you accepted and celebrate, say those things, what do you think?
So, as a state legislator, I was able to get almost 60% of my bills passed down at the state capitol, and that's with me being in a Republican super minority, 19 Republicans to 46 Democrats. And the reason that I was still able to get almost 60% of my bills passed is because I can work with everyone on these issues, and I do that because I focus on policies, not personalities.
With respect, would you please answer the question, when Donald Trump uses dehumanizing rhetoric about minorities and migrants specifically, what do you think?
So glad we watched this.
In the endorsement that Donald Trump gave me, he talked about securing the border. He talked about making our communities safe. He talked about lowering the cost of living. Those are the things that I'm focused on. Of course, I condemn any sort of racist sort of speech. And I would, really appreciate if my opponent could join me in condemning some of that racist speech. Yesterday was the anniversary of one of the most egregious attacks on the Jewish community, and I didn't see anything on my opponent's social media talking about that. In fact,
both of you actually acknowledged it yesterday on social media, but just to clarify, when you say that you condemn racist statements, are you talking about those statements, those dehumanizing statements by Donald Trump?
I've always condemned any sort of racist statements.
Are you willing to say that Donald Trump statements?
Specific.
I've always condemned racist statements.
Thank you.
Along those lines,
wow.
No question here. Will you appear alongside Donald Trump at his rally in Aurora if you are invited?
I found out about that rally last night via the news media. I have as much information as anyone else in this room.
But if you were invited, would you say yes?
I have as much information as anybody else in this room. I have not been invited at this point.
Let's say you say yes. Would you correct any false statements in front of Donald Trump that he were to make about Colorado?
I always stand for the truth. Again, this is why I've got 60% of my bills passed, being in a super minority. This is why I've got 2/3 of the mayors in my district that have thrown their support behind me.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Caraveo. Mr. Evans is running an ad that says the unsecured border is allowing drugs and crime to flow into Colorado, and you're responsible for all of it. What responsibility do you and Democrats have for the damage done by the surge in illegal immigration during the Biden administration, and how should the federal government help Colorado deal with the impacts on everything from health care to education?
Well, first of all, thank you, Marshall, to you and to Kyle for having this debate tonight, and thank you for the audience for being here. It has been my honor to serve as the member of Congress for the new 8th Congressional District for the last 2 years, and I do that as the culmination of the American dream that I have been able to live here, with 2 parents who are immigrants, a dad who worked in construction for 51 years to put 4 kids through college. I was able to go through medical school and then see the issues that my community was really struggling with. Immigration is one of the issues that more needs to be done on by both parties. It's been 40 years since there has been any comprehensive immigration reform, and both Democrats and Republicans have been in charge since then. I've spoken truth to Kamala Harris on that in a resolution. I have introduced a package of bills that is bipartisan to look at the issue, and I'm not standing with a racist like Donald Trump and touting their endorsement and the really damaging language that they use against immigrants.
I mean, I just want to give you the opportunity. He says you're responsible for all of it. What responsibility do you have?
My responsibility was introducing legislation, which I did, that looks at securing the border, making sure that we're stopping the flow of fentanyl, that we are funding interior cities like Denver, and that we are treating people humanely when they do come to this country. That package has not been moved by the Speaker of the House, who has endorsed my opponent. There was a bill from the Senate that was supposed to be coming over to the House. Donald Trump decided that he would rather run on the issue of immigration than give me the opportunity to vote on it. I would have voted for that package, but he decided, and Mr. Evans probably agrees with, the immigration is best left to be a campaign issue and not something to be solved.
Thank you, Ms. Carvalho.
I nominate these two guys to
immigration and borders
run every debate.
Changed significantly in the last
all the debates.
3 years ago, you called for the defunding of Border Patrol and ICE, and then this summer, you joined Republicans in strongly condemning Kamala Harris specifically and the Biden administration more generally for failing to secure the border. What caused you to so drastically change your views on immigration in just a
The Mexican woman.
I think the country has changed, and we've seen a crisis that both parties have set up and not offered solutions for. And so as a member of Congress from a district that is very evenly divided, it is my responsibility to portray the opinions of my constituents. And I've done that by being the 8th most bipartisan freshman member of Congress. I've done that by passing the first law that a freshman member of this Congress passed last year, and I've done that by introducing a bipartisan package around immigration reform and many other issues. And so really that is the way that I am approaching this issue and many other issues, making sure that I am truly representing the people of the 8th District.
So it sounds like you're drawing a distinction between what you believe about immigration and border security and what you believe your constituents want on the issue. Because of the changes in your position, I'm going to ask you about a number of things that you've supported in the past, and if you would please just tell me briefly whether you still hold those positions. If you want to differentiate,
love these guys,
position, but I'm going to vote against it anyway because I think that's what my constituents want. Feel free to say that, but let's try to get folks some clarity because of the changes that have happened. In 2021, you called on the Biden administration to divest from immigration enforcement agencies like ICE and CBP. Is that still your position?
My constituents do not believe that, and so I would vote against that.
Is it still your position? Do you still believe that that's the right thing to do?
My job is to represent the 8th Congressional District, and that is what I'm doing every time that I vote.
In 2019, you sponsored a bill prohibiting local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration holds in Colorado. Do you still believe that Colorado law enforcement should be barred from working with immigration agents?
It shouldn't be up to local law enforcement to do what the federal government has failed to do.
That sounds like a yes. You still hold that position.
The local police officers should not be enforcing laws that the federal government has not reformed.
In 2021, you sponsored a bill that allowed the state to award contracts to companies that knowingly employ people who are not in this country legally. Is that still your view?
I will vote in keeping with what the constituents of the 8th District want me to, and I think that is taking a balanced approach to people that immigrate here legally and illegally.
That did not answer the question at all. In 2021, you sponsored a bill that allowed the state to give contracts to companies that knowingly employ people who do not have legal authorization to work. Do you still believe that's the right thing to do?
I've not had a bill presented to me since then.
In 2021, you sponsored a bill that opened up taxpayer-paid public housing to people here illegally. Is that still your position?
I have, around the issue of housing, made sure that I'm introducing a bill to have the federal government pay for migrant housing so that local taxpayers do not.
Well, local taxpayers pay federal taxes, so it's still their money.
Yeah, but a disproportionate amount should not come onto the taxpayers only of Denver.
Okay.
How's the moderator talking right now?
Before we move on to other topics, Republicans and Democrats put together a bipartisan border security bill in Congress.
What was the other guy's name?
Points to that bill included emergency closures to the border.
Both of them are nervous at the moderators.
Asylum approvals and denials. That bill failed after Donald Trump told the Republicans to oppose it. I believe, Ms. Caraveo, I already heard you say you would vote for that same bill if it came up again.
I would.
Okay. Mr. Evans, would you vote for that same bill if it was presented if you were a member of Congress?
So what that bill did was require or allowed up to 5,000.
Let's start with yes or no. Would you vote for that same bill?
No, that bill had bipartisan opposition.
Okay, why? What is it about that bill that had support from many Republicans that you oppose?
That bill had bipartisan opposition as well because what it required was up to 5,000 folks per day to be allowed into the United States under an asylum claim. What that does is that allows 1.8 million newcomers into our country every year through the asylum program. It does not actually work to solve the issues, and what it does is it takes the Border Patrol off of the border and moves them into an administrative role where they're not actually securing the border. They're filling out paperwork instead of protecting our country. We need more Border Patrol agents, but we need more Border Patrol agents actually on the border securing the physical boundaries of the United States.
There was math that would have allowed the border to be closed for emergency reasons that wouldn't have gotten anywhere near 1.8 million, but thank you for your point there. Let's move to the economy and housing affordability. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have proposed tax cuts, but have different approaches on affordable housing. Neither has fully explained how to pay for their proposals.
What's this guy's name?
Do know. The centerpiece of Trump's economic plan is across-the-board tariffs, 60% on goods from China, 20% on other imports. Last month, Trump threatened to impose 200% tariffs.
Marshall
should that company move
Zillinger.
production from the U.S. to Mexico? Mr. Evans, tariffs are passed on to consumers through higher costs for those products. Farmers and ranchers in Congressional District 8 could face significantly higher costs for the same product if Trump followed through on the John Deere threat. Is that and Trump's broader tariff plan smart policy?
So when it comes to protecting the American economy, what we have to do is we have to cut red tape. We have to reward folks who are taking the risk and doing the work in the United States. When we're talking about China, China's in a class all of its own because China uses slave labor and they have their communist government that's actually supporting their industries. And so we need to make sure that we are holding China accountable for their dealings in the international community, and we're not allowing them to take over certain sectors of our economy because they're not on the same playing field. They're literally getting support from their government. So when it comes to China, I strongly I want to make sure that we are holding China accountable for how they do their dealings. That protects the American workers. For protecting American workers, we need to cut the red tape. We need to ensure that they are able to do their job here without the punitive regulations, many of which my opponent has sponsored. She brought the most damaging bill in a decade for farmers and ranchers in the 8th Congressional District.
That addressed the broader plan, and just a very quick answer about the John Deere threat. Is that fair to the people of Congressional District 8 if they had to pay more for the same product under that threat?
So we need to make sure that we're creating a positive environment here in the United States so that we don't have to have threats like that, so that we can have American industry and American economy empowered here in the United States. When we actually cut that red tape, you don't have to have that threat.
But in the meantime, that threat is there. Thank you for the answer there. Ms. Caraveo, Kamala Harris is calling for increased taxes on large corporations and on Americans making more than $400,000 per year. Is that also where you would draw the line? And please be specific. Who should pay more in taxes and who should pay less?
You know, I think for a very long time, especially under the Trump tax credits and Trump tax law, we have been giving breaks to people who make over $400,000 a year and to corporations. It's more than high time for them to pay their share. And so I would approve of a plan that increases taxes on those individuals. I think that the next congressperson...
No, I think we should give breaks to people 500 and under.
...is going to be deciding what taxes are going to be cut and what taxes are going to be increased. And I think...
Raise taxes on people making $500,000 or more.
His chance in office, he would be continuing a lot of the tax credits that benefit the wealthiest Americans amongst us. I, on the other hand, as a representative, have voted on decreasing the middle class tax amounts. I have voted to extend the child tax credit that gives $1,800 a month to working families, and so I'm going to take a very different approach.
So on the less, is it $400,000 and less will be paying fewer taxes?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. To housing.
Do I make $500,000 a year? No.
Legislature, where a lot can be done to impact housing affordability. I'd like to ask each of you to discuss something you achieved at the state level to improve housing affordability, and then something you'd look to do in Congress to help Coloradans afford homes. I'll start with Ms. Caraveo.
Housing was one of the prime issues that I looked at during the COVID pandemic. I had heard stories from many constituents talking about late fees that were exorbitant, fees around trash and many other things that hadn't been delineated in people's leases when they decided to rent a place, and then later were suddenly added to their bills, sometimes totaling more than the rent itself, especially once corporations were calculating late fees the second that the rent was late, and then daily after that. I was able to pass a bill that lowered those fees, that made sure that landlords are being responsible when they are charging fees to renters, to make sure that we are making housing more affordable for them. In Congress, I am introducing a bill that is going to look at innovation around affordable housing, to make sure that at the federal government, what we mainly can do is fund affordability and make sure that we're looking at the way that different developments are classified and credits that landlords can use to build.
Thank you, Ms. Caraveo. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, so one of the biggest barriers to affordable housing in Colorado is red tape. And that goes back to energy.
Oh my God.
When energy is expensive, then it's more expensive to get a load of 2x4s. It's more expensive to drive that load of 2x4s to the market. It's more expensive to put the house together. When there's red tape around housing construction, as we saw in the aftermath of the Marshall Fire, where the rebuild costs were significantly higher than anticipated because of all of that red tape, all of these things contribute to a higher cost in housing. And the fact is, one party, my opponent's party, has controlled Colorado with majorities in the House, the Senate, and the governorship for the last 6 years, and houses are not more affordable. Things that I've accomplished in the legislature are fighting that red tape. I'm proud to be endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Businesses, so that's the voice of small businesses in the United States, because I fight for jobs. I fight for our small businesses, unlike my opponent, who has voted against those businesses 75% of the time. That's how we make housing affordable in Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Let's discuss access to abortion. Mr. Evans, in 2022, 2 years ago, you told a conservative group that you support banning abortion except to save the life of the mother, no exceptions for rape or incest. Is that still your view today? And if not, can you explain how your view has changed in the last 2 years?
Yeah, so I know the survey that you're talking about. That was a check block survey that had two options, one pro-life, one pro-choice option. I'm pro-life, so I selected the pro-life.
To clarify, that same survey allowed you to clarify and add comments to your remarks, and in fact you did on a question that was on the same page. If you felt like an exception for rape and incest was appropriate, why not add that in a comment, as you did to clarify and answer a short time later?
So here's my position, and I've said it since day one, since I got into the state legislature. My voting record in the state legislature reflects this. I support exceptions for rape, for incest, for life of the mother, and I don't support a national abortion ban. I received pressure as a state representative to sign on to bills from my own party that would have taken away those exceptions, and I was one of 5 Republicans that didn't sign on to those. My voting record on this is clear from day one, and so is my opponent's voting record. She voted for abortion up to the moment of birth, no questions asked, and she voted against funding our military because she wanted to use military funds to pay for those abortions.
Ms. Caraveo, you've co-sponsored a bill to protect abortion access in federal law and even supported spending tax dollars for contraception for people in this country illegally. So the question is, do you support any restrictions on abortion access? Why or why not?
I support codifying Roe v. Wade. It was the law of the land for 50 years and then was taken down by a Supreme Court that Donald Trump, who has endorsed my opponent, has said he is very proud to have set up. My opponent celebrated the fall of Roe v. Wade. Now that he's running for Congress, he suddenly does not want a national abortion ban, even though he filled out a questionnaire in just the way that Kyle described 2 years ago. And he has described himself as pro-life as they come. That decision of whether to have a child or not, it needs to be between a doctor and a woman. As a doctor, as somebody who has been in clinics talking to women about this incredibly tough choice, that is the end-all and be-all of what I think abortion law should be. It's between a woman and her doctor, not between Gabe Evans being in your exam room and telling your doctor what to do.
Thank you, Ms. Caraveo.
Mr. Evans, you're on the record supporting school vouchers for private schools, using taxpayer money
fuck
to
that.
support private or religious schools. And Donald Trump's plan calls for universal school choice. How would you like to see that accomplished at the federal level?
Right now in Colorado, we have an education crisis. I've got 2 boys. They're in, school-age kids. Right now in Colorado, 60% of our 3rd graders aren't reading at the 3rd grade level when they're in 3rd grade. 70% of them can't do math at the 8th grade level when they're in 8th grade. And so what we need to do in this space is we need to put parents, students, and teachers back in charge of education. And so what I've always supported is an environment that allows parents and families that choice to be able to select the education that works best for them. To me, that means 2 things. That means parents can see what their kids are being taught, and they can actually select a school that works for them. They're not locked into something that's underperforming just because they happen to live in the wrong zip code. And so I think that we've seen this succeed in other places, and so I will always be a very firm believer that allowing parents, families more choice, putting them along with teachers back in control of education rather than bureaucrats is the way that we move our education system forward.
You're a vocal supporter of the Christian homeschooling movement, and you're a member of a Christian group called Heritage Defense, which defends parents accused of beating children, or as the group describes corporal punishment, quote, following biblical protocol in the training and discipline of their children. As a state legislator, last year you voted against a ban on corporal punishment in Colorado's public schools. A brief answer, please. When do you believe that it is acceptable to hit a child at home and at school?
That answer is already in the law right now. It's in Title 18.1.703, so you can go refer to the law where it talks about the special exception that parents and guardians have when they're tasked with the upbringing for a minor. But I want to address something you mentioned.
How about public school? When is it appropriate for a child to be hit in public school?
Never.
We need to ensure that we are providing a safe place for our kids to be able to learn in our public schools. I was a part-time school resource.
There was a security exception. This went beyond the security exception when people needed to control children for safety reasons. When should children be hit in school?
I was a part-time school resource officer for about 2 years at my law enforcement agency. And so one of the biggest things that I hear from teachers is...
I apologize, sir, if you're not going to answer the question, we're going to use the time.
Ms. Caraveo, I just want...
Damn!
I just need a quick answer on this. You're running an ad about fentanyl that says you broke with your party to back tougher penalties, and that's just not true. In 2019, you voted with the majority of Colorado House Democrats to defelonize small amounts of possession of fentanyl. And then you joined the majority of House Democrats to reverse that in 2022. Why deceive voters on such an obviously false claim saying that you broke with your party on that?
That's not true, Marshall. I broke with my party in Congress on various votes, including one to increase the number of Border Patrol agents by 22,000.
So you're referencing nothing of your actions at the state legislature in that ad?
In that specific ad, I am referencing votes in Congress.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Caraveo.
Guys, this is one of the most competitive races in the House, actually.
Ms. Caraveo.
He stands a really good chance of winning.
Joe Biden.
Mr. Evans, if Kamala Harris wins the 2024 election, will you accept the results?
We have to make sure that every legal vote is counted, but yeah, I always accept the result of elections.
Thank you very much. It's time for your closing statements. You'll each have 1 minute, as determined earlier by a coin toss. Ms. Caraveo, you'll go first.
Thank you, Kyle and Marshall, again, and thank you to the audience and to my opponent for being here tonight. Listen, the choice in November in 4 weeks is stark. I have made sure that I am representing the 8th Congressional District in a way that my constituents would be proud of, and in a way that is in keeping with having been raised as the child of a construction worker, a child of immigrants, and somebody who's been able to live out my dream, my American dream. That is what I have been working for every single day in Congress, by making sure that I'm looking at affordability, that we're looking at healthcare and making sure that it's accessible, that we're giving the choice of healthcare back to women, and that we are keeping our air and water clean, all while ensuring that we continue to have an oil and gas industry here in the 8th District. It has been the honor of my life to serve as the representative for the 8th Congressional District, and I hope to earn your trust for 2 more years.
Thank you very much. Mr. Evans.
Thank you so much for hosting the debate tonight, for my opponent, for having this conversation with me, and to our studio audience. And Colorado, the choice couldn't be more clear. We have a choice between policies that allow fentanyl to flow into our communities or that hold drug dealers accountable. We have a choice between leaving the border open or securing the border. We have a choice between policies that defund law enforcement or that actually support our police officers to keep our communities safe. We can reward work or we can punish work. My opponent's voting record is clear. She's voted for defunding the police. She's voted to lower the penalties for violent criminals who commit crimes with firearms. She's voted for open border policies. She's voted for policies that make it illegal.
Sounds amazing.
For state law enforcement to even pick up the phone and call immigration and customs when folks are committing crimes in our community.
Seems a lot better than what she actually came across in the debate.
A grandson of immigrants. I served overseas.
You did a good job of selling me on her.
I know how to fix these things. I've done it down at the state legislature, and I look forward to doing it in Congress. I would love to earn your vote.
Mr. Evans, thank you very much. 30 minutes flies by, and thus concludes the only live debate in Colorado's 8th Congressional District this year. Thank you to both the candidates.
Best debate we have watched, hands down.
Do not duck debates, take on challenging issues, and
because of the moderators, not the candidates.
About your
neither of the candidates are all that spectacular.
Studio audience, you have been respectful. I encourage you to now join up.
But once again, both of them were intelligent and weren't drooling on themselves.
Go out in 3 days. You can register to vote and vote in person.
I'm sad we missed the Boebert one.
If you missed any of this debate, you can see it in its entirety on 9news.com, streaming on 9 News.
We did. It happened while we were watching a different debate.
9news.com is also.
But I'm glad we went back and watched this. That was fan-fucking-tastic. So, what a night of debates we just had. And as you saw in the California debate, we had a lot of people on YouTube. For most of the night, there were more people on YouTube than there were on Twitch, which usually doesn't happen. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the heads up that it's probably going to happen again tomorrow. Tomorrow is a big one. Tomorrow is the Arizona Senate debate between Kari Lake and Ruben Gallego. It is a crucial seat for control of the Senate. And it is also featuring one of the most batshit crazy candidates we're going to hear from. Fucking Kari Lake. And get this, the other day we did a police chase and Kari Lake was the anchor. And she was batshit crazy on it. So very much looking forward to tomorrow night. I don't know exactly what time it starts. Hold on, let me get you a time on that so everybody knows. I don't want to just leave you hanging. I didn't expect the California debate to start at 5 o'clock. Starts at 6 p.m. Arizona time, so that's 8 p.m. our time, or 8 p.m. Eastern time, right? It's 8 p.m. Eastern time. Verify that for me. 8 p.m. Eastern time. So tomorrow night we will come on at 7:30 again. Do Milton coverage. Watch the Arizona Senate debate. Hold on, let me see if there's another debate tomorrow night. It's possible. What is the 9th? There were several other congressional debates tonight. A couple of them have other dates that we will catch those. We could watch the Iowa 3rd District debate tonight. There is not a congressional debate tomorrow. I'll check the list. Try to make sure we don't miss anything. CJ, good evening. I didn't get a chance to give you a shout out when you came in earlier. Staffy, good evening. Energy Flow. 7:35 p.m. in Arizona right now. So what time is it? 6. So is it 9 o'clock or Eastern time? Is Arizona Pacific time? I was thinking it was Mountain time. Is Arizona Pacific time? Because that would make it 9 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. I am horrible with numbers. I'm horrible with times. I get very confused.
You take your 33 and a third chance minus my 25%.
No one answered my question.
You got an 8 and a third chance of winning.
Oh, there are 2 time zones in Arizona. And it doesn't do daylight saving. Well, that makes things really hard. So 6 p.m. Arizona time. It says 6 p.m. Arizona time. What's 6 p.m. Arizona time? We're coming on at 7 tomorrow. We can't miss it if we come on at 7. We're coming on at 7 tomorrow for the Arizona Senate debate. Now, I put together a news show for tonight. But I kind of don't feel like doing it. And I feel like you guys probably don't want to do it either. So, do you know what you get? You get a police chase. This happened in Houston 3 years ago. This is ABC Houston from 3 years ago.
13 Live. Tammy, what can you tell us about this chase?
Jeff, we just picked up the pace.
Okay, so the debate is 9 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern time.
Up in the downtown area, you can see several police officers behind them. We are tracking them at about 70 miles.
Okay, T-minus, I trust you. So we're gonna come on at 8 o'clock. No reason to come on at 7.
They're making that
8 o'clock. We'll cover Milton.
On the East Freeway right now. Possibly pulling over. Actually, they're getting into downtown traffic, so hopefully this might be over here. You can see quite a few vehicles right in front of them. They're in the
Is this going to be a quick one?
Off the Allen Parkway.
Yeah, a chase on the interstate is one thing. Obviously, a lot of dangers there, but when you start getting a chase that goes through downtown at this hour with the traffic that's down there, there are a lot of obstocals in the way people walking on the street to their
Now, we watch a lot of chases out of California.
We see at least 4 or 5 police officers and SUVs. Do we know at this point what may have started this chase, Tammy?
Yeah, we're still working with our desk right now trying to get some more information, but they actually picked up this chase that started on the 610.
Carrie Lake is a slick talker. She's batshit crazy, but she is, she's got charisma.
Found here.
Do not underestimate her.
Walker Street, so these are a lot of traffic down here in Surface Street, so be aware of that. Look at this, it looks like, you know, a lot of
absolute horrible trash person.
And like I said, we see at least 4.
We're back on the freeway now.
That black car there, excess in speeds about 80 or 90 miles.
Flash probably.
It's very dangerous.
Back on 45 northbound now, going through downtown. He basically made a loop around the courthouse annex or the City Hall annex, and then got right back on to 45. This is northbound now through downtown. Is that right, Tammy?
Look at this.
Oh shit! Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be fun.
Weaving in and out, very dangerous. So again, if you were headed out,
oh, he's hitting the exit again.
45.
I think that's the exit to I-10 now. Is it?
Oh, we're hitting a different interstate.
And boy, you saw how he weaved around that car.
They're on the I-10 transition right now, headed east.
Living on the I-10.
70 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour.
Yes, those moderators should moderate every political debate in the country. They should moderate. They should just be Twitch moderators.
And you can see police or
moderate Twitch debates. They would be excellent.
Trying to be as safe as they can, right? Because they are continuing to try to keep the safety of other drivers in mind. Obviously, this driver is not taking another.
Fuck Wick TV. I want Kyle TV.
He or she?
Our Churchill is showing us just exited off of William Street right now, off of I-10, the East Freeway, getting ready.
I'll open the phone lines back up. I changed the Nightbot. The Discord should work now.
Again, just something to be aware of.
I'll open the phone lines back up just in case somebody wants to argue, because hell yeah.
Traffic a little lighter here than it was in downtown over by City Hall, the City Hall Annex. It doesn't make it any less dangerous or anything like that, but fortunately there's just not as much traffic in this.
The Discord server should work now.
That's gonna end pretty quickly because
I guess it just expires after so many years.
Looks like Minute Maid Park is is close by where he is. Is that right?
Daffy, if you missed the phone calls, I now have a section dedicated to it on YouTube.
On a side street, again, and I'm working the camera.
If you guys aren't following me on YouTube, I'm actually doing really well. I'm making money on YouTube for like the first time ever. Please go follow my YouTube. If you like the phone calls, you can go back and listen to phone calls.
Right now, tracking this.
There's a whole section like phone calls, debates, and right-wing nonsense now.
Still not pulling over for police officers, but again, this started on the 610 North Loop is where we picked it up at.
I made $10 in one day on YouTube, and I'm like, wow.
Tammy, we're getting ready to make a transition to Good Morning.
It hasn't been that good any other time.
On broadcast as well as on streaming, so just bear with us, stay with it, and we'll be right back on stream in just a moment.
That's all I want. If I could make $5 or $10 a day on YouTube, I'd be happy with it. That's all. You can search JustinFREAKIN on everything.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Ealing.
And I'm Samika Knight. We are following some breaking news here. A police chase.
Watch my stupid shit.
Downtown Houston. We want to get right up to Sky at 13. Tammy Rose, can you tell us where they are?
Yeah, just making the transition right now in the opposite direction on the East Freeway, heading back to downtown. You can see 4 or 5.
I don't want to be a fucking millionaire content creator. I'd just like to pay the bills, and I'll give you guys all the content you want.
Streaming apps, Tammy. We'll be right back to it.
They had to do the hit to the
now. You can see this police chase that we are continuing to follow. This is north now on 45. Tammy, sorry we had to interrupt you there. We needed to get on to Good Morning America with the cut in to bring this to people live. Give us a bit more of an update. It looked like it was an 18-wheeler there that maybe tried to stop to slow down this chase, but as we've seen,
just caused a backup.
Being chased, just kind of weaves around those big rigs and gets back on it. The chase still on at this hour.
Yeah, I was just trying to zoom out so you can get a better look of where we're at. We're just north.
I think I want to try to be a
the east
helicopter reporter for a TV station.
Pursuit of a black, smaller SUV vehicle.
The only problem with that is I'm scared to death of heights.
Right now, this excess of speeds at about 70 miles per hour. This all started on the 610 North Loop near 45.
I went on a small plane one time, and my radio station dropped a bunch of ping pong balls for a contest. I was the one that dropped them out of the plane. That was pretty cool.
If you're just joining us, this chase started.
Oh, I won't, Sassy.
About 10 minutes ago or so. Tammy was telling us that it started.
It freaks me out on video games.
Downtown, 45 southbound. The suspect then made a U-turn basically in downtown around the court.
The only problem with doing a normie job again,
and then went to I-10. And then came back around. And
I've been
45. Is that
uncensored for so long?
Yeah, that's correct. A little bit hard to keep up with.
Can you imagine me getting a job at a TV station?
On the North Freeway northbound.
I'm not high enough for this shit. Give me that eye pussy.
About 60 miles per hour. As I zoom out, the only good news right now, it doesn't look like there's a lot of traffic up ahead of him.
That woman deserves a titty slap.
Be aware of this very dangerous situation here on the North Freeway.
Yeah, and the good news is that, as you mentioned, there's very little traffic. I know that we are in spring break for a lot of students, so we don't have the
eye in the sky pussy.
Parents, teachers on the road right now, so the roads are a bit clear, but this is just, there is nothing safe about this. We've seen this particular suspect.
I think I heard them say it's rush hour traffic, but I do not know that.
Misses this morning, and police are hot on this person's trail. We don't know if this is a female or a male. We don't know why this chase started. We're still trying to get that information. I know, Tammy, you're working with our desk right now, but this person is going so fast. It's just incredible to see.
Are they going that fast?
Like this.
We don't have the speedometer anymore.
7:22, and this is happening.
7:22.
Latest. Looks like that.
7:22 a.m. in Houston. Yep, that's rush hour.
Or is that just?
Yeah, on our desk, the first to tell us about this, Jason Jobs, doing an excellent job working the desk, listening to the scanners. He's the one that first alerted us to this high-speed chase on the 610.
I didn't think it looked fast. I was 60, 70.
Cavalcade in the left lane.
But we didn't have a lot of traffic to judge.
Get right to Good Morning America.
Earl the Gray, welcome in.
Okay. This is the cut-in.
Cut back to the actual newscast.
And now, breaking news from ABC 13.
Good morning again, everybody. I'm Jeff Ealing. Got breaking news. This police chase is still ongoing now. It looks like we're in about the 13th minute or so since we picked it up about 13 minutes ago, Sam.
Yeah, this police chase started at the 610 North Loop, and we want to get right to our own Tammy Rose there in Sky Eye to update us, as you know, what's happening right now, Tammy.
Good morning, Samika. Yeah, the camera's shaking a little bit. We have some very strong winds up here in excess of 30 miles per hour. So if the camera bounces around, that's what it is. He is on, or the driver is on the North Freeway just past the 610 North Loop. And actually, that's where we first picked it up. We are clocking him at about 58 miles per hour, just coming up now.
Yeah, about 60.
Timbers. The only good news about this is outbound traffic. So traffic is just a little bit lighter. I'm going to try to zoom out here for you. You can see
so he's heading out of the city.
Behind them, and we also have a police helicopter up here with us.
All right, Tammy, we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll return with this chase in just a moment.
Now we're going back to the live stream.
Back up.
I miss TV. I miss TV an awful lot. Like, this is fun.
Streaming apps. We're going to continue.
It's not like being part of a team putting on a TV show.
Crowded, you know, in the broadcast, because we dip back and forth to Good Morning America. So, you know, forgive us for leaving and then coming back. But we're going to try to.
Working on a movie set is a lot of fucking fun.
Right now we're in a 2-minute.
It's
Good Morning America.
Hectic. It's demanding, but it's.
But we've been following this.
When you're actually working, there's a lot of waiting around as well on a movie set.
Sorry for that. We've got about a 2-minute break here with between Good Morning America.
It's wait.
We're still
go hardcore for an hour.
It looks like we
wait
on this guy's tail.
Yeah, Tammy just trying.
But I'm always working multiple jobs on a movie set, so.
Cross timbers. In excess of about 70 miles per hour.
And we have
usually I'm sound and I help stage the scenes.
But this is a dangerous.
So once I'll stage a scene and set the lighting, usually I'll go to the next scene
in time
and start staging it, and then I'll come back and run the sound.
Looks like he's headed going about 45, 50 miles an hour. Tammy, is that about right?
Yeah, we're actually trying to stay behind the police helicopter up here, and again, the winds are fierce. We're getting.
Then I end up getting all geared up. I'll have the boom pole and all my, you know, I've mic'd everybody up, and then it's wait some more.
All of that traffic slowing down. That is inbound, just passing cross timbers right now. He's been traveling more than 80 miles per hour at times. A couple of near misses, but again, this is outbound traffic.
Oh yeah, girl, the great. Always, I'm a big proponent of right to repair.
Rejoin.
Everybody should be able to repair their shit.
Tammy, stay with us here for just 1 second.
I don't do Apple products.
Good morning, everybody. We got breaking news to get to you. If you've been following this on our ABC 13 streaming app, we're now bringing this to you live on air. A police chase, a vehicle, a black SUV. Police started chasing this vehicle about 15
Good night, Lenny.
or so.
Line one up, tip one back.
North Freeway headed northbound. This driver has gone into downtown at one point, managed to get back on the North Freeway, and is out headed northbound.
Yeah, speeds reaching 70.
Oh, Sassy freaking out about no app. No, I
in this area.
Build all my own shit.
This area, make sure you stay away.
They use open source software and everything.
Trying to get this driver to stop. We're continuing to follow this at abc13.com and anywhere you are streaming ABC 13.
But don't worry, because so many people in my field work with Apple. I have all the codecs and everything. And you can send me Apple shit, and I can work with it.
Continuing our breaking news on our streaming apps, this police chase that has gone on now for at least, we're coming up on about 20 minutes or so. Just a moment ago, we were watching as this driver slowed down.
I just can't put anything on your phone or anything, because I won't download whatever.
To kind of move over.
Whatever, like iTunes.
An accident is one of the things that we.
Oh, fuck, I would never drive a Tesla.
About these things all the time. You know, one of the dangers of these police chases is what could happen.
As I said earlier, like if I, you know,
flee from authorities, and you have 4 or 5 police officers.
But see, I don't know if I told you good evening.
At very high speeds. Samika, you just mentioned at one point this guy was going 80 miles an hour, slowing down, obviously.
It looks like that vet down there.
North Freeway, but Tammy Rhodes and Scott did a fantastic job of staying on top of this, Tammy.
Yeah, and
Well,
with
chase
the
it,
winds,
too.
I tell you, it's a little bit hard keeping up with the driver. Again, we don't know if it's a male or female.
I forget. I smoke a lot of weed.
Near 45, the North Freeway. We are on the North Freeway right now, heading outbound just past Airline. So if you're in the Greensport area,
Yes, Stabby. Statistics will tell you that cops just go after red cars because they seem fast.
that way, just past Airline, and
You should never buy a red car. You are more of a target.
So very fast, and we just had the second police helicopter get up
For the cops, anonymously. I don't know if I told you good evening.
as well as DPS up here trying to bring this driver to a stop and in custody, hopefully.
Hell yeah, talk shit about Elon any chance you get, especially if there's a possibility that it could possibly get to him
Of this person
or somebody that. I don't think criticism gets to Elon, but somebody around him gets
saw
it.
that officer
And probably,
going very fast.
Yeah, and probably to alert other drivers that something's going on. Because, I mean, think about it. You are headed to wherever you're going, and thank you, Tammy, for giving us those locations.
So this is not live. This was
exactly where you are, Greenspoint.
3 years ago in Houston.
Wherever you're headed, you have no idea.
So often we do California chases. I wanted to give you one in a different state.
Alert those ahead of them.
And Drake is not here for it.
Maybe
Drake is going to be here next time we do a chase.
Some of the traffic.
It's going to be in California.
Watching this one
He's going to be like, oh, California again.
This driver, we don't know if it's a male or a female. We don't know why this chase started. It started around just a little after 7 o'clock. At least that's when we picked it up. 610, the North Loop at the North Freeway. And
I'm glad I was never on the Elon bandwagon. You can probably check all my social media going back to
information on the suspect in
2009, 2010, whenever he became a thing.
But we have had a lot of near misses.
Certainly
and
have.
We are watching this very closely. And Tammy saying speeds.
And I was still talking shit about Elon.
A dangerous situation.
Back when all the liberals were on his side.
You have to be on the brakes, and you have to go slow. And here's this person going very, very fast.
Yes, that red car.
I'm not sure. We watched this red car on the feeder road too, going.
Yes, I pointed it out as well.
The guy,
yes, it does.
Right?
That red car was actually
trying to bring this to a close, and he the officer with the spike strips.
What?
There go the strips. Couldn't get.
Oh, stupid fuck!
The driver managed to get onto the feeder road
it
very
makes you
quickly.
wonder if the red car is a part of the police.
Could be.
You think he's undercover?
Undercover officer? We're not really sure.
I saw the red car on the.
You don't have a fucking scanner.
What in the world? But
I'm gonna assume he's undercover.
Maybe, as you mentioned, Jeff, maybe that
because he's interfering with an investigation if he's not.
No, this is just before the Beltway, and so it looks like the red car's trying to box him in. Now he's going into the parking lot there where that Mambo Seafood is, if you're familiar with that.
Oh! He's pulling evasive action. I love it.
Parking lot and people in and out.
Very fast through a parking lot.
And you can see he's going to try to make it to that side, the south exit there, and try to get back on either to the feeder road or, yeah, he's going to take, now he's going heading back inbound, eastbound on certain streets away from 45 and away from the Beltway. As soon as we can get that picture reestablished, we'll try to continue to follow this chase for you. But now, again, we're in that situation.
Light one up, tip one back.
On surface streets, he's quite a ways away from, from the interstate, and thank goodness it is spring break, because normally there's a school right there.
Yeah.
There's a school building right there, you know.
Side streets, Jeff, means pedestrians.
That's right.
People taking public transportation.
Kids on bikes.
Kids on bikes, and I mean those who have absolutely no idea what's going on.
It makes it more fun. Danger is what makes it fun.
A news person watching this, and as so many other people watching.
They got the strips out again. Easily avoided them.
Here just got out of the way of that vehicle.
Stupid fuck cops.
Yeah, and one of the problems that we encounter in the morning is we see people running red lights, right? And so if you're in this area and you've got a green light and you're going to go through, you just don't.
I'm sorry if anybody wanted news.
If you know anybody that's on the road or getting on the road,
we only really covered Milton.
Very, very careful at traffic lights, because.
And I had a really good segment. I probably would have clipped it for YouTube too.
You just don't know how this is going to end or how long it's going to go.
Tammy, did you have something?
He is heading right now northbound on a side street near Airline and Dinah, coming up on an intersection right now. This is just east of the 45 North Freeway, and looks like he's heading back to the freeway. We'll see if he's going to get on or stay on the feeder.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's going to turn on the feeder road heading northbound along the North Freeway.
Go back to the freeway?
Airline Drive. And again, we do have 2 police helicopters up here with us. And
I think they got more than 6, don't they, DJ Dub? But he lost several of them.
Fuel. Hopefully, this will come to an end soon.
When he went through that mall or that strip mall parking lot.
Hit anybody or anything like that. No accidents.
Shopping center, I guess you could say.
Along the feeder road heading northbound. And his speeds, we have tracked him as high as about 82 miles per hour.
Right, and continuing north, that's the intersection where he could have gotten the feeder road of the Beltway, but did not. Now traffic is at a standstill here because of a traffic light, but again, finding a way to get around those parked cars, those stops.
He didn't really find a way. He just went around them.
Road 45.
The way was right there.
These decks like this, it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on.
The Texas-sized interchange.
There, right there.
Yeah, we can only pray that this will end peacefully.
That one monstrosity is outside of Houston, isn't it? Or is it Dallas?
And also
the one that went viral a few years ago.
These go both ways, and we can only pray that this one will end peacefully with no one being injured.
Looked like he entered the ramp now to get back.
Maybe Dallas.
Northbound. And again, this is over by the Greens Point area, the intersection of 45 and the Beltway in North San Houston.
From Houston to Iowa?
That's an officer that's
That seems like a downgrade.
exit ramp right there. That looks like he may have gotten onto the freeway. Yeah, you can see the other vehicle.
It's even the big city in Iowa.
Freeway. Again, headed northbound now towards the Woodlands and past the airport.
Does it have a city?
Already on the freeway there. You know, again, we are working very closely with the our news desk to try and see how this started. It started just after.
I was gonna say Boise, but that's Idaho.
Back around 610, the
Wrong
North
I-state.
the North Freeway, and has continued. We've seen this particular vehicle on the freeway. We've seen them travel through downtown.
Iowa doesn't exist. Des Moines.
And tried to deploy the stop strips here about 5 minutes ago when he
That's
got
a decent-sized city.
there was a red car that was in front, and it looked like that red car may have been trying to assist officers by forcing this guy to slow down. But in that particular case, I think the spike strips were not able to be deployed successfully because of the presence of that red vehicle.
Right.
And we don't know if that person's in law enforcement or.
I'm gonna say they were because think of if you've got a fucking
pull over,
Corvette or Camaro or whatever that was. Do you think you can put it at risk to try to help the cops?
Not sure why. Is there anything ahead of this, Tammy, that's causing this person to slow down a bit? Yeah, it's traffic building up a little bit.
For you. No, actually, traffic's, well, actually, he's coming up on some traffic. Again, this is outbound on the North Freeway, coming up on Rankin.
And police still right behind him. Now he's got his hazard lights on? He does. Yeah, he's got his hazard lights on now.
It does look like he's got the hazard lights on, which is a little bit bizarre. I didn't see that earlier.
I was honestly hoping that was an indication to police that he was going to pull over, to be honest. But I see that is not what's happening. Are the hazard lights off now, it seems?
No, it looks like they're still on, passing the Ritchie Road exit coming up here in just a second. Still headed northbound on 45. There are at least a half a dozen officers on the main lanes of 45 behind this guy, and then we saw officers also going along the feeder road, potentially to try to get ahead of this guy on the feeder road. Maybe if he takes an exit, they can get there with the spike strips. We'll see. This is the exit, I think, to Ritchie. I think that was the last one. He is slowing down. Yeah, the driver is slowing down. Yeah.
Hazards on, hopefully to indicate that this is coming to an end here.
No, don't just peter out.
As slow as we've seen him.
You've got to wonder if the spike strips did something potentially, maybe.
Maybe, but it just looked like that officer just didn't get a good chance to. The gap between that vehicle and the red vehicle that was in front of him was just so small.
Pretty good at spotting tires that have
slowing significantly though. Here, we're just waiting to see how this is going to.
Overtime desk.
They almost have him boxed in at this point. We don't know if there's an officer in front of him that might be able to slow him down.
So OnStar, we're getting information from our desk that OnStar is getting ready to stop the vehicle. So our desk did a fabulous job this morning on getting information for us.
That's why you don't drive newer cars.
With OnStar, and just got off on the feeder road at Ritchie, so that is why the vehicle is slowing down.
And that officer there trying to get ahead of him, possibly to either deploy spike strips or to stop other traffic. But if OnStar is going to be deployed, that potentially tells us that the vehicle may be stolen. Might not be, but when
And you
vehicles
see that.
are stolen
Yeah, it's
and they have the
amazing with the
OnStar.
technology what they can
course.
do. So that's why it's coming at a stop.
stopping
So it's
now.
still a
Wait,
dangerous
stop.
situation because they're not.
Well, I consider 2010s and up.
Now police are going to be getting
newer.
here, probably guns drawn.
Of course.
Hopefully this will end peacefully, but you just never know.
Yeah, but that is 15 years, isn't it? Goddamn.
And police obviously are out of their vehicle at this point. Again, this is just north of Ritchie Road near Rankin, northbound.
It's like I consider music that has come out in the last 15 years is newer.
Started about 30 minutes ago, has finally come to a stop.
Guess it's not, is it?
The person will surrender and go
Right.
peacefully.
And of course, we're keeping a close eye on it,
Sam,
but
what did
at
you
a
say?
distance, because we just
These are
don't,
in
we never know
airport.
how these turn out. So we see
That's
all
right.
of all of the police
Yeah, it's a standoff now.
approaching the front.
There we see the
first
door,
three
looks like it's open, the
vehicles
person
there.
may be out.
Oh, he's just gonna surrender.
We hesitate to zoom in a little bit just because, you know,
They might shoot him.
get out of control very quickly.
They might shoot him.
But this person's hands are up, backing up, following the
Ah, so
Probably
uneventful.
tell him to get on the ground here very soon, as soon as he clears the back of that car.
Hold on, I might have one that's more eventful.
Clearly following officers' commands. So that kind of puts things at ease a little bit, continuing to back up closer and closer to the officers, on his knees now. They'll probably tell him to lay face down. Oh, they grabbed me by his hands. Okay, this is over now.
Yeah. Well, of course, the next step is they want to make sure no one else is
Right,
in the vehicle.
right, that's true too.
So you see that
the
they are
officer.
still.
Yeah, still
Dougie,
has
good
his
evening.
attention on the vehicle, as do the other officers.
Right.
Clearly, there may, in fact, be somebody else in
Copy,
there.
thank you.
We know that this chase started. Yeah, there we go. The passenger
someone
now
else.
coming
Okay, so
out.
there's a passenger in the vehicle.
Oh, there is a passenger.
Hopefully, they too will just continue to follow officers'
Hands up.
instructions, and this will end peacefully. And clearly following what officers are telling them to do. Again, this chase started shortly after 7 o'clock this morning and really went all through downtown. Down 45, around I-10, back up 45, and now here we are near Rankin Road, and the second suspect now in custody. Officers still paying attention to the vehicle. Possibly more
Thur.
suspects in there, we
Looks
don't
like.
know. But they're going to check it out. They're opening this door there.
Look, there's something in the seat.
And for their own safety, still guns drawn, checking the entire
the back
vehicle.
of the car as well, yeah.
But they have now 2 people in custody as they are still searching that vehicle. We see that some of the officers are putting their guns away, so we can only imagine that there are only 2 suspects. Those suspects now in custody.
That wasn't any fun. They stay on it for a while. They show highlights and everything. Oh, I hate it when they end uneventfully like that. I want someone to get hit in the parking lot of a sex toy store. I ain't done. I got another one. Let's go to Philadelphia, where a shooting suspect leads police officers on a wild chase. This happened 4 days ago. So probably a night that I was off. It was a good chase. It just had an uneventful ending. So back-to-back chases that aren't from California. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hey, what? Apparently this is a shooting suspect. Driving wild already. I love it. I'm here for this. Buzzy, I've got one, people in a convertible that was like 11 days ago. Is that it? I've got that one in the bank as well. But I think it's like an hour long. I have numerous police chases saved. play them based on the time I want to fill. All right, we got time for this one. This one, I'm going to go ahead. I'll spoil it for you. This one's kind of short, but it's apparently fun. Because Justin's hungry. Whoop. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. What between them? Oh, fuck. Didn't make contact. Whoop. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Nice driving. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. That is 3 cops in a row. Tried to block them in or do some sort of maneuver. Dodged all 3 of them. Oh, did they make contact at the intersection? I didn't see that. Oh, fuck! It's the cop car. The cop car is smoking. I think the cop has blown a tire. Or maybe he just kicked up some dirt somewhere. Because the car looks to be still going. I'm not sure. His left rear might be blown. The cop car. I think it is, but he's still fucking going. Probably only going about like 20, 30 miles an hour. Maybe 40. It's like a residential area. Was it the suspect honking his horn? Okay, I could do the helicopter reporting if I'm not like looking at the They're not looking at the helicopter, are they? They're watching a monitor, whatever the camera is shooting. If I had to like hang out the helicopter or something, I'd flip the fuck out. I couldn't do it. If I could be buckled in watching an iPad or something, doing my commentary. Mad props to this suspect thus far. Fantastic driving. Give them an 8 for their evasive maneuvers on the cops so far. I'm going to start judging police chases like they're Olympic Games. Oh, fuck, it's the sidewalk. I love it. Oh, my God. Whoa! Whoa, no! Why did you zoom out on that? Was there contact? Oh my God! Holy shit! I love police chase. Oh shit, he lost control of it. Has it back now. I hope he didn't damage his tires. I'm rooting this motherfucker on. Oh, whoa, we got a door open. Is he gonna bail? Oh, what? What? Run, my man, run! I gotta see that again. That was awesome. Holy shit. Fucking wow. That's what I was thinking as well. He should have went up into the wooded area there, but I don't know where that leads to. What's that? You want to watch it one more time? Yes. This may be my new favorite chase, but we've watched so many good ones. Is this Popo? Is this Popo? The white one definitely is. The cop pulled some kind of maneuver. Holy shit, Mr. Sprunk. Hold on, both of them are pulling like crazy maneuvers to roll one more time. You can see the door is starting to open. Is there something wrong with the car at this point? Oh, he definitely hit that car on the sidewalk. Fucking amazing. Now, is this black SUV? Is that law enforcement, or are we just dealing with the white one here? Yeah, the cop in the passenger seat pulled some kind of maneuver, but it wasn't as cool as the suspects. Whoa, he tried to switch back and it cost him. He tried to switch back and go the other way and it cost him. Boo. I slow-mo this motherfucker. This maneuver is insane to me. Maybe I hit the slow-mo a little too early. Coming up on it now though. Oh no, this was earlier in the chase. I wonder if he did something that sustained damage to the car there. So I said I hope he didn't blow a tire. Maybe he lost the brakes. It's a good point. Ooh, almost hits a pedestrian there. The pedestrian steps back. Coming up on it right now. You see the door opening. Fucking fuck, what a roll. And he ends up on his feet. That's fucking smooth. Wow. He rolled over like 3 times and then landed on his feet. I am totally clipping that for YouTube and TikTok. Dude should join the circus. Amazing. That might be the best one we've ever watched, and we've watched some really good debates. I mean, car chases. I'm frazzled. It's been a long day, a long night. We did 3 fucking debates tonight. So I'll get aboard the puppy bus.
Echo, Louie, and Carl, our dog's already boarded. Time to pick everyone else up. Mina, welcome aboard the puppy bus. Get yourself ready for a day of fun in the snow.
Here, Mina.
Now here we got the lovable Odie. Odie, come aboard the puppy bus.
Odie!
You too.
Come on, buddy.
Good boy, Odie. Next up, we got Murray. Murdo, welcome aboard the puppy bus.
He says, excuse me, Mina.
He would like to sit next to Mina. Next up, he's slippery, he's slidey. The internet's favorite, Fish. Come on.
Fish.
Fish. All right, he is quick, he is nimble, he is the second half of the internet's favorite poodle duo, Dasher Do. Welcome aboard. Hi, brother. Next aboard, we got Otis. Otis, welcome aboard. Sitting next to his good friend, Odie. Now here we have one of our mentor dogs, Jake, the distinguished gentleman. Walks on in unaccompanied and makes his way right to his seat. Next aboard, we got the king of the pack walks, Amaru. Another one of
Love Amaru.
Welcome aboard.
Okay, chat, I'm going to send you over to my friend. He just started streaming a couple months ago. I went to college with him. Super cool guy. If you like Metal Gear, he's playing Silent Hill 2, the new one right now. I want you to give him a follow. He predominantly does Metal Gear. He's made the board on the world record for speed runs, and he's got some really good YouTube content on Metal Gear. So I want you to give him a follow because he's a real cool guy. And one of these days, I'm going to have him on the Freak Show. So go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. Tomorrow night is the Arizona Senate debate, and it's bound to be wild. We'll see you then on the Troll Patrol. Live.